so I'm on YouTube Live right now. I don't know. I'm here. Hi. So guys, join me on YouTube because I want to watch a documentary with you guys tonight. Hi. Just type in bit.ly BRE, sorry, hold on, I'm sorry. bit.ly/BREUCK YouTube. And you'll be able to find me. Let me see if I could do one of those swipe up things. I don't know. Let me see if I could do that and then I'll come back. Let me see. I'll come back, guys. And video. How do you do? How do you tell people to swipe up? Oh, hi guys. I'm trying to figure this out. Hold on. Hold on. I'm just gonna have to do something about my boots. Yeah. Okay. So how do you see anything? Like I can't see. I didn't think about this. The fact that I can't see the chat. Oh no. Other things. Ooh. Okay. All right. Let me see. How am I going to see the YouTube chat if I do this? I didn't think about that. I think I'm on live. Hi, I'm on YouTube. Join me on YouTube at bit.ly/BREUCK YouTube, okay? Join me on YouTube live because I want to watch a documentary with you guys. Bear with me. This is my first YouTube live, right? I never did this before. So now I figured out how to do it where we could, you could watch me and the documentary at the same time. But then I don't know how to. My channel. I don't know how to see the chat. I don't know how to see the chat. I guess I'm gonna have to do it this way. Some hood shit. Is there a chat? Okay, here we go. Okay. There it is. I think that's it over there. Okay. All right. So I figured out how to do that. Okay, now. Okay. So. All right. I'm feeling like I'm doing something over here. All right. Hold on, guys. Why is it not showing me the chat? Okay, there it is. All right, guys. Okay. All right, there's the chat. Okay. Right. All right. Okay. I got some stuff going on here. All right. Okay. Now, so I wanted to watch a documentary. Let me turn this down. And I wanted to watch this documentary with you guys, and like, I honestly don't want to edit it. It's a lot, and I miss. You're not that old. You should know how to do this. Shut up, Jay De Niro. Janae De Niro's making fun of me, talking about not that old. I've never been on YouTube Live before. Like, I've never done this before. So, and look, like, give me some credit here. I'm on Instagram Live and YouTube Live at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me some credit, okay? All right. And I had to set all this up, okay? So, now, the documentary I want to watch is on population control, and it's about how it affected the Asian population. Now, we've had so much going on. Yeah, so I will be like, if you're gonna join me on live, you know, it's my day off. So we're gonna sit down. I'm gonna sip. Okay. We're gonna watch this documentary. We're gonna kiki. And learn some things, you know. My favorite thing to do. So let's get started. Let me say hello to everybody. Let's start with Instagram, just because you guys are my base. You guys, I started with y'all. So Let me say hey to Unstoppable War. Hi, Isaac. Hi, Andrea. Andrea been around for a minute. Hi, Andrea. Hi, The 11th Hour. Hi, King Ray. Hi, Sunrise. Hi, NoHo Joe. Hi, Philly. Hi, Joe Mo. Hi, Jay De Niro, my boo-boo. And hi, Slim. Okay, and let's see on YouTube. Hi, Suli. Hi, Buddy. Hi, From Darkness to Light. Hi, Tanya. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you guys for hi, Sugar Nails. Okay, so I'm famous. I'm not famous, Jay De Niro. Like, I even tried to look cute for y'all. Y'all see I put a little makeup on and everything. You know, I tried. I figured if I ain't gonna go out, I'll get dressed up and watch this documentary with y'all. Okay, so let's get started. Let me turn the music off. Here.
This is a film about women who had to abort their daughters. About men who can no longer find a wife. And about girls who are kidnapped because of that. And about desperate parents.
Sorry, wait. I was trying to check the volume.
Almost 200 million girls and women are missing globally today. How could it come to this? And why do we know so little about it?
Here, have a look. Would you please read this? Please help us.
Guangxi is a province in southern China. Pang Jingdong and Hu Aizhen are parents who are searching for their daughter. 3-year-old Peng Shuting disappeared a month ago without a trace. At first, nobody believed that something terrible could have occurred in this peaceful village where everyone knows each other. But the search for her has remained fruitless.
We looked for her for days. We searched every corner, day and night.
5 days and nights.
She was gone.
All that remains for the parents are the memories and baby photos from happier times.
She's so small here. She was so cute, so adorable. How could this happen?
Du Yin knows a lot of despairing parents. He works for a relief organization. Throughout China, there are already 200,000 volunteers searching for missing girls, such as Pang Zhuting.
Kidnapping of little girls are not uncommon in China. A son's marriage is expensive because the bride's family expect expensive engagement gifts. For this reason, parents have little girls kidnapped. They then raise the girl together with their son. And when they've reached adulthood, they are married to one another.
There is a shortage of millions of women in the world's most populous country. 135 boys are born for every 100 girls in some provinces in China. This is the result of an experiment that started decades ago on the other side of the world. In the USA, after World War II, It was the era of the economic miracle. People in the West were doing better than ever before, if not for the fear that their prosperity could soon come to an end. A big concern was constantly growing populations due to medical advances, especially in developing countries.
Okay, so we're going to pause it right there. So America was doing so great that they were concerned about the populations in darker countries. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it a buck. They were concerned about the populations in the darker countries growing larger. I just want you guys to pay attention to that. For you guys on YouTube, you go to bit.ly/Bruck YouTube, and you can find me. You can watch it with me and not just watch me. But if you want to just watch me, that's fine, you know. But if you want to actually watch the documentary that we're watching and sipping together, watching it, once again, that is bit.ly Bruck YouTube. Oh, wait, /Bruck YouTube. Okay, yes, get back to the documentary now.
Affluent Americans started a new movement. Together, they wanted to curb the large numbers of children worldwide. Most of them were men, from well-known scientists to the super-rich, like John D. Rockefeller III. They were people with influence and connections to the highest levels of the American government. Their foundations still continue to exist today. The Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Population Council. They triggered a rising tide of fear of a population explosion that soon also spread to other countries, and they formed the head of worldwide measures taken to decimate the population of the impoverished. This has been examined by Matthew Connelly.
To decimate the population of the impoverished.
Historian at Columbia University in New York. He has researched in detail the development of this movement, from its beginnings to its impact today.
The Population Council saw its mandate not just to control the rate of population growth, but also to address problems in the quality of population. So they had an explicit mandate to try to do something about the growth of the fertility rates among people who they thought, would eventually take over the world if something wasn't done to reduce fertility rates across the board, but especially among people who they thought would be.
They are so concerned about these darker populations taking over the world. Let's keep going.
Poor parents, it would have even more poor children.
They hide it under
this way of thinking also took hold in American politics in 1966. US President Lyndon B. Johnson attached conditions for receiving development aid, one of them being that recipient countries must reduce their population. It was
Pause. Don't you find this really interesting at this time that we're living in the United States of America? So they're sitting here talking about, right, how at the time that they held on to aid. Aid was given out based upon whether you participated in what they asked you to participate in. And right now, isn't the president of the United States of these Americas, right? Isn't he being charged with withholding aid from a country if they did not agree to look into Vice President Biden and his son? Let's go back.
Was a time of drought and starvation in India. The president spoke on the phone with his Secretary of Agriculture.
then you just put down this morning instructions to all your people that the president says any future allotments, he wants to know what we give, and Exhibit A, he wants to know what we get. So let's evaluate that too. And I know the first sentence will be, we feed a lot of hungry children. I know that, so I don't need to be told. But just tell me what else we get out of it. Usually we just get kicked in the pants. That's what she does to us.
Pause!
He stopped.
Wait. You heard that? He said, yeah, we're going to feed a whole lot of hungry children. But who cares about that? What are we going to get? We don't give a fuck about feeding hungry children. I want to know what we're going to get out of it. And is it like, think about Trump and the things that he says. Not that I disagree with some of the things he says when he starts talking about what are we going to get out of it from one of these other countries, because he has a point. But even a broken clock is right twice a day. So, you know what I'm saying? But think about what they're saying. You know, what are we going to get? So in the case now, you know, he's trying to get his quid pro quo. But in this case, what was valuable to them, more valuable than the money that they were giving up, was killing their babies. Let's keep going.
Food deliveries until Indian President Indira Gandhi bowed to the demands. Accusations were made that the West had imperialistic intentions with its population control projects. A Department for Population Control was founded at the United Nations in 1969, the UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund. Through this ostensibly neutral path, Western governments channeled millions into population control in developing countries. The major donors, besides the United States, were Sweden, Great Britain, Germany, and Switzerland. South Korea was among the earliest testing grounds for population control. The country was devastated after the Korean War. At the same time, there was a baby boom with the highest birth rates in the world. The United States participated in the reconstruction from the very beginning. Population control was high on the agenda. These 4 Korean women grew up in a village 200 kilometers from Seoul and still remember the war and the time that followed.
The government said we should have fewer children. That's why we stuck to it. We women had abortions. We thought we were doing the right thing, and we did it voluntarily.
Western countries donated buses and jeeps that were converted into mobile medical units. Documents show that their task was not health promotion. The Population Council, an American foundation, expressed a clear-cut mission to the Korean Ministry of Health.
These vehicles are given to help improve living standards in Korea through a vigorous attack on the problem of excessive population growth.
Instead of letting citizens plan their own families, family planners made having fewer children a citizen's duty. They were not interested in fighting poverty, but only in preventing the poor from having babies. Mobile clinics in India went to secluded villages as early as 1956, because Indians were also supposed to have fewer children. Western family planners flooded the country. One of the pioneers was the American doctor Sheldon Segal. He founded a department for reproductive medicine in one of the largest state hospitals in New Delhi and trained Indian medical students. Although early versions of IUDs had fallen into disrepute in the West, Segal smuggled them into India in 1964.
Pause. As a woman, let me talk to my grown women, okay, for a second. Don't you remember how problematic IUDs were when they first came out. Remember, they were poking holes in women's uteruses, all kind of craziness. Do you guys remember? It was a catastrophe. And to think, and I remember them being pulled off the shelves. I remember them being such a hazard, like women were bleeding to death. I mean, it was crazy. And they pulled them off the shelves. And you often wonder to yourself, when things get pulled off of the American market, what happens to them? So the FDA or whatever, pulls it off the American market, and then what? They shipped it off to India for population control. Think about that. And come on, King Ra, the IUD is still fucking people up. It's definitely still fucking people up. Matter of fact, the way they used it, let me go back. Let me show you how they're using it.
He declared them as Christmas decorations at customs and had them inserted into the uteri of...
Pause! He snuck them in the country by calling them Christmas decorations. I mean, in India. So let me ask you a question. Christmas decorations, is that do they celebrate Christmas? Was Christianity a major thing in India? Because I thought they, had a lot of different religions, and I didn't think Christianity was like a major religion over there, to the point where, you can sneak in IUDs as Christmas. Well, maybe that's why he's able to do that, because they don't know what Christmas decorations look like. Anyway, let's get back to it.
Women without the knowledge of the government. In a letter, he wrote,
The present approach is to distribute the ones I have on hand to private gynecologists. We are also inserting some in monkey uteri. My feeling is that in the long run, it may be faster to quietly accumulate evidence from these sources before trying to press for wider distribution in government family planning clinics. I do not want to raise the question with Health Minister Dr. Nair if the answer is likely to be negative, because we would then be in a precarious position if we pursue human studies at all.
It didn't take long for the Indian government to give the green light. The United States Agency for International Development even sent non-sterile intrauterine devices to India. Serious complications often arose, sometimes with fatal consequences. Despite this, the family planners increased the pressure, and the Indian government cooperated.
Pause. Something that's interesting to me about this, right? As we sit back and we're constantly being told, black people need to stick together. We're the only race of people that doesn't stick together. Now, I will say that in the United States, when people come here, they tend to stick together more. But look at what the Indian government did to its own people. And this documentary is going to go on to other countries on the continent of Asia. And they also agreed to do this to their own fucking people. So understand, we are not the only race of people with coons and sellouts, and you know what I'm saying? We're not the only race of people that have people that look like us, but really don't have the benefit, of the collective group at heart. So don't think that we all have to come together. We all have to see things. That's not the way it is. As long as we have a good amount, and I feel like that is my mission. My mission here is to wake up more of the army. That's what I'm here for. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to get as many people on board with Black empowerment as we step into a more combat style of war, because we're already at war. So, that's my mission. Just wake you up so you can see it coming, and you'll be, if you're not even physically ready, but you'll be kind of mentally ready, because your brain have already wrapped around the thought of the fact that, you need to prepare for this war. So I just want you to keep that in your mind. Like, don't let people make you feel like, oh, we don't stick together, we can't accomplish shit. We can accomplish it. We don't have to have everybody. The Haitian Revolution, we all know what they did to the collaborators. So, if they did that, and we know what Harriet Tubman did to people that wanted to go back. So if she would kill people that wanted to go back, and the Haitians would kill black collaborators, we can at least ignore them and keep going on our mission. All right, so we're going to keep going.
They set quotas for sterilizations and IUD insertion, paying doctors and health workers premiums.
Isn't that what they're doing to us right now? They're paying the doctors bonuses to give out vaccinations. They're paying the doctors bonuses to give out drugs and medication to get people hooked on opioids. Because how the fuck else do you think people got hooked on opioids? Because the doctors kept writing prescriptions for opioids, because the fucking the drug companies was coming and buying them lunch and saying, hey, please prescribe more of these opioids. That's how it happened. So these doctors are complacent in the shit, including in India. So it ain't just here, us. It ain't just here.
Poor, uneducated women were the main targets. The bait? Money in exchange for their fertility.
Pause. You notice how they always get you with the bag. You think you getting a bag, and the white supremacists is always dangling it. Oh, don't you want this bag? Don't you want this bag? Oh, you can have a better life if you get this bag, and you get the bag, and let's see what happens when you get the bag.
So you had this system where people at every level were being given money from the United States, from the United Nations, from Sweden, from Norway, money to agree to sterilization, or money to get other people to agree to sterilization, even if in some cases that eventually meant...
Pause! Did you hear the countries that he said? From Sweden, from Norway, from the United States, all the super white countries was giving out money to sterilize people. Okay.
And rounding them up and trucking them to camps where they were sometimes sterilized under the most appalling circumstances.
Sheldon Segal visited one of these camps in 1962.
Check this shit out. Pause for everybody that's on Instagram Live. If you want to watch the documentary with me, you can go on YouTube, and that is bit.ly/BREUCK YouTube, and then you'll find me. You'll notice the cartoon. Let's go back.
He described it to his superior.
I spent Sunday at a women's sterilization camp and found it fascinating. After the surgeon sews up the abdomen, the ladies get off the operating table by themselves and walk out of the operating theatre.
The situation in India spun out of control. In 1975, the government of Indira Gandhi forced 8 million women and men to undergo sterilization.
8 million women and men. That's a lot of fucking people. I don't know how much money they was paying them, and I don't remember that they said how much money they was paying them. But 8 million people. Think about that shit. Think about what that does to the population. 8 million. I want to reiterate that. That's That's a lot of fucking people. That's a whole nation in some countries. Shit.
This dark chapter in Indian history became known as the emergency period.
The idea of population control, what was so seductive to national leaders, people like Indira Gandhi, was the idea that they could achieve modernity in one generation. And they could do it with crash programs, even if it required taking some risks, even if some people were going to get hurt. This was something that was going to make India a modern nation, and it was going to improve everyone's welfare in the long run. What they didn't understand, though, was that in many rural societies, these children...
Pause. It was going to make India a modern nation. You see, in their quest to be a modern nation, let's see what they ended up doing to themselves.
Were their parents' only source of security in old age.
Bring that back
right?
a couple seconds. Oh shit. Does it not work like how it does on the mobile? Sorry. Guys. I guess I'm going to have to actually bring it back. I can't just double tap. Okay. Okay, play.
It was going to improve everyone's welfare in the long run. What they didn't understand, though, was that in many rural societies, these children were their parents' only source of security in old age, right? And not.
So think about that. So he said that in many sense, that was their parents' only security in old age. You know, that's the only way that they're going to be taken care of, because it's not like they have 401k or a retirement plan or a pension. So the children, they depend on their children to take care of them in their old age. But if you don't have any children because you got the bag when you was young to get sterilized, now you were sterilized and you don't have any children and you're old.
Not only that, but in poorer societies, even children in many cases are able to support themselves and help their parents, even from a relatively young age.
But there is another reason as to why people in Asia have many children. They want a son, and so they continue to have children until they have their male descendant. The family planners recognize this preference for sons as the key to solving the...
Pause! So now you heard them say that the reason why people usually have so many kids is because they want a son. They are trying to, they have one, they got a girl, they have another one, they have another one, they have another one. Now this also helps out because now you have more kids to help in the household and stuff like that. And no, this is not HC5. It's a, no, I would never do that. Yo, Tariq don't play. You can't be bootlegging his shit. I would never show his child. I would never show Tariq shit without his permission. Shit. He don't play. No, this is just a documentary on YouTube. It's called Missing Women and the shit. I don't want to mess it up. I'm scared to touch it. I don't want to mess up my thing. It's called like Missing Women and something. I'll put the link in somewhere. I'll put the link somewhere. But yeah. So no, this is not HC5. So it's just really, really interesting to me, like when you really break down how something that they thought was really small really affected them years and years and years into the future. So let's keep going. Cocoa butter is not really good for mouse pads.
The population problem.
People at places like the Population Council and the Ford Foundation, they realized that parents in poor societies in many cases preferred to have sons. And what they began to think was that if only they had some way of helping those parents determine whether the fetus was a female or a male, then they might, along with abortion, they might have a quick way of reducing fertility rates.
So now, on top of the fact that they sterilized 8 million people, they weren't satisfied with that. They wanted to figure out, how can we kill more babies? How can we stop more babies from coming into the world? Bingo, let's give them abortions. And what I want you to understand is, they did this under the guise of what is already a cultural norm. Right now, LGBTQ is trying to make that a cultural norm here in the United States. Now, I'm not saying that people don't have a right to love whoever they want, and I respect your right to love whoever you want. What I'm saying is that we would be remiss to be blind to the fact that white supremacy will use cultural norms as a way to tailor the population. And let's keep going. If you guys want to, you guys on Instagram, if you want to join me and watch the documentary with me, you can go on my YouTube, which is bit.ly bit.ly/Bruck YouTube. Okay, and then you guys can watch me and the documentary at the same time. Let's keep going.
The head of the Population Council laid down a clear course in 1967.
Augmented research efforts leading to improved contraceptive technologies or practical methods of determining the sex of an unborn child so that parents could be assured of a son.
In the early 1970s, the time had finally come. Scientists developed chorionic villus sampling, or CVS. With this method, a child's sex could be identified before birth. Abortion was forbidden in almost all developing countries. Sheldon Segal and his colleagues used their connections to the highest ranks in the US government, and with great success. Henry Kissinger was US President Gerald Ford's Secretary of State at the time. In a 1974 document that was long kept classified, he demanded the massive depopulation of developing countries and declared abortion to be an indispensable tool for population control.
No country has reduced its population growth without resorting to abortion.
While women in the United States were still heading to the streets to demand the right to control their own bodies, American foundations and politicians were pressuring developing countries.
So while women in the United States are fighting and begging for the right to have an abortion, they pretty much forcing it down the throats of people in developing nations. I think that's interesting.
To legalize abortion. In the following decades, a massive surplus of men was created in Asia through the abortion of daughters. The consequences are omnipresent in India today.
Pause. So, as a result of the 8 million people who were sterilized, and then the amount of abortions that they gave to girls, they have a surplus of men in Asia. So they went from not to having what they deemed as a surplus of women to not having any whatsoever. And I also want to say think about the fact that everybody who had an abortion and who was sterilized did so on their own free will. I just want you. Well, China was a little bit different. China did have laws stating that you could only have one child, so people would choose that one child to be a boy child because of those laws. But aside from that, you know, all of the people that sterilized themselves, they were like, oh, you know what, you gonna pay me? And here's the thing, I don't know what it's like, so I'm not judging. But I just want you to keep that in mind, that when the white supremacist comes to you with a deal, it's never what you think it's going to be. You know, at the time when you're hungry and you're starving and somebody comes to you and tells you, I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money to get sterilized, you're like, okay, look, I can feed my family for this many days so I can get on my feet, da 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 da. But now you don't have no kids. You're not really thinking about the long-term effects that that's going to be. And I feel that it's the same way with even hip hop. Let's put that in the realm of hip hop. You know, we got so many of our youth fighting and scratching and clawing to get that bag, not really caring about the community at large or anything. So I just watched that Troy Ave thing on the Troy Ave interview on Drink Champs, and my mind was blown. I don't want to say too much because I don't want people looking for me. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say too much about it, but I was just blown. And then I'm gonna tell you this much: if you watch Troy Ave, that Drink Champs with Troy Ave, right after you watch that, go to my son's page and watch him talk about it and get a kind of a total picture. But anyway, we going off topic. But you know, I just want y'all to think about the fact that, you know, they constantly have us chasing the bag, but look how demoralizing to the people it was. But they got the bag. They got the bag, and was the bag all that they wanted it to be? Let's see. If I could, man, I really need to wipe. Maybe I need to get an alcohol wipe because it's just too much cocoa butter and shea butter on my mouth pad.
Once again, those who suffer most are girls and women of low socioeconomic standing. Like 19-year-old Sajina.
My mother and older sister died on 2 consecutive days. I was 6 months old at the time. Then my father contracted polio and my grandmother raised me. My father went out to beg and we lived off what he brought back. That's how we 4 kids grew up.
Today, Sajina lives with her brother Shamshul's family. He is her protector and saved her life 3 years ago when she suddenly disappeared from her village. After Sajina vanished, Shamshul sold everything, travelled 2,000 kilometers to New Delhi and reported her disappearance to the aid organization of Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi.
Some men offered my sister work. She declined. After that, she disappeared. She was able to get hold of a phone and call me when she wasn't being watched. She was crying and begged me to get her out of there. I went there and saw her. Blood was coming out of her eyes and her face had been cut.
Coming from a lower caste, Shamshul was not able to accomplish anything on his own. The police turned him away several times, but after pressure from the aid organization, they finally went to the village where Sajina was being held. A woman claiming to be Sajina's mother-in-law pulled out a marriage certificate. The shortage of women is particularly extreme in the northern India state of Haryana. Parents desperately seek wives for their sons. The village elder eventually explained what had happened to Sajina.
We paid 50 or 60,000 rupees as a down payment. I can prove it.
Just give us the girl. We're not leaving without her.
It's all legal. I married her in front of 11 witnesses.
The truth finally came out when the residents turned the girl over to police. The entire village had collected money to buy Sajina for a number of bachelors. She was married to one man and abused as a sex slave by 7 others. This is one of the consequences of the severe lack of women. Sajina is no exception. Human traffickers...
So, let's talk about it. So now, because 8 million people decided to get the bag and be sterilized, and the remaining population decided to abort the girls, there is such a shortage of girls to marry all these boys that they had. They are kidnapping girls and forcing them to marry men. Ain't that a bitch?
Comb the slums looking for girls. When they disappear, hardly anyone goes looking for them. The traffickers are often acquaintances or neighbors. Sajina's kidnapper still lives in her village. Nobody blames him, whereas she was labelled a whore and was forced to...
Her kidnapper lives in the village with her. Her brother had to sell everything he owned to get her back. And nobody blames the kidnapper. They blame her and call her a whore.
to leave home. Girls and women like Sajina suffer the consequences of population policies introduced and expedited by Western family planners 50 years ago in India.
No pregnant woman thought that she could selectively kill girls and have only boys. So this was created by the so-called academic medical profession, promoted by Ford Foundation and a lot of other NGOs which funded the whole project. I think they took 30 students per year in BSc genetics. So in about 5 years, there was a corpus of a few hundred people who could tell whether it's a boy or a girl.
Gynecologist Puneet Bedi was trained at the same hospital where Sheldon Segal carried out his research. As a young student, Bedi had a dramatic experience in the delivery room.
The first night that I went to the hospital, I saw a stray cat in the hospital. It might surprise you, but it's not unusual in government hospitals to see stray dogs and cats, carrying what looked like a mass of flesh or something outside running out of the labor room. So I went inside and I asked people what happened. So one of them said that the cat may have taken away the placenta or the fetus that was delivered. So a 6-7 month old fetus was delivered and it was dumped just under the bed of the delivering woman. So then I was told it is a project and there's research going on. Somebody's writing a paper on it. And how to find out it is a boy or a girl before birth by doing amniocentesis. And if it's a girl, of course, then we abort.
Prenatal sex determination was the biggest breakthrough in population control. This way, girls were aborted en masse, and birth rates were reduced twofold. Fewer babies were being born, and fewer girls that could later bear children.
So, remember when I made the post about the flies, right? How they got the flies by sterilizing the males and then reintroducing the males into the natural habitat and making them compete with the unsterilized males. That's how they were able to wipe out a whole population of some larvae. I can't remember the name of it. So now in this situation, what they're doing here, on top of sterilizing 8 million women and men, they also decide to abort the women or the female babies, which and then also affect the population because then you have less people to make babies. Let's keep going.
Daughters are weeded out in China as well. 1 in 5 boys presently born will later be unable to find a wife. Mothers are worried. They advertise at countless marriage markets for their surplus sons. In Shanghai, there is such a market every Sunday in People's Park.
I'm here for the second time today. I'm looking for the right girl for my son. Many people have come up to me. We exchanged phone numbers and information. The mothers will now ask their daughters if they're interested in my son, and then we'll talk on the phone. We parents help our children to establish contact.
These are mothers who are
Things are so dire that the parents are struggling to make hookups for their kids.
who only have one son because they were permitted to only have one child. This was the Chinese strategy for population control. US President Richard Nixon and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger arrived in Beijing in 1972. It was a historic meeting with Mao Zedong to discuss the balance of power and a mutual commitment to world peace.
There is no reason for us to be enemies. Neither of us seeks domination over the other. Neither of us seeks to stretch out our hands and rule the world.
Pause! Lying son of a bitch. Talking about, neither of us seeks to rule the world. Bullshit! And the sad part is that they don't even know. They don't even know. But neither do we. But we learning.
But the Americans were worried about the growth of Chinese power and the spread of communism, and the fact that Chinese population growth seemed unstoppable. Nixon's visit opened the floodgates for Western family planners. The Chinese government had a sympathetic ear for them. Mao's successor, Deng Xiaoping, introduced the one-child policy. Millions were trained as lay health workers, the so-called barefoot doctors. Their mission? Distributing contraceptives all over the country and ensuring that couples only had one child. Family planning became a matter of state. If anyone expected a second child, they faced draconian punishments. The government used graffiti on building facades to warn people to toe the line.
So basically, they used propaganda to bully the population into having the mindset of only having one child. propaganda and the law. Because they would like excommunicate you. Well, we'll watch. Let's keep going.
You can beat it out, you can kill it, you just cannot give birth to it.
Child, let's rewind that. They said you can beat it out, you can kill it, you just can't give birth to it. I gotta get some. We'll get some wipes.
The government used graffiti on building facades to warn people to toe the line.
You can beat it out, you can kill it, you just cannot give birth to it.
In spite of media reports of forced sterilization and abortions, the West continued to donate money to the Chinese population program. At first, this only came from organizations like the Ford Foundation, but in 1979, even the United Nations Population Fund gave $50 million to the Chinese government. An employee of IPPF, one of the donor organizations, sounded the alarm.
I think that in the not-too-distant future, this will blow up into a major press story, as it contains all the ingredients of sensationalism. Communism, forced family planning, murder of viable fetuses, parallels with India, etc. And when it does blow up, it's going to be very difficult to defend.
But the warnings were not only ignored. The UN Population Fund also presented China with an award for outstanding contributions regarding birth control.
Who did they choose to give it to? It wasn't to reproductive rights advocates. It wasn't to people whose lives were at risk because they were trying to campaign to give people, and especially women, the right to own and control their own bodies. It was just the opposite. They decided to honor the leader of China's coercive population control program, a Chinese general, who had presided over the most egregious period in the entire history of that program. And they chose to honor Indira Gandhi, who was responsible for what until then was the worst population program of all, the emergency period program in India.
Is the UN Population Fund facing up to this dark chapter of its past?
But what is almost never discussed is the history of that program and how it is at an early stage the UN Population Fund was deeply involved in an incredibly coercive program. And if we can't get the UN Population Fund to acknowledge that, then how is it they're going to get people to trust them to do the right thing now and in the future?
Why did the UN...
Pause. So you see the UN was involved in this. Now, I hear a lot of Haitian activists talk about the UN's presence in Haiti. I've heard African people talk about the UN's presence in their nations. I've read articles about members of the UN or members of charity organizations affiliated with the UN. I've read articles of them being arrested because of child molestation, child trafficking, organ harvesting, and all types of things. So now here we have another case of where the UN, and this is back before a lot of other shit, and we have another case where the UN is doing some pretty deplorable shit. Let's keep going. Oh, this is much better.
Population Fund financially support countries that forced people to be sterilized and have abortions.
I need to be very clear about the role of UNFPA. Those awards were given by the United Nations member states. That is it. We carry out their instructions.
At that time, the United States was the most important member state, contributing 40% of the budget. Was the UN Population Fund simply the puppet of its benefactors?
Instagram, I'll be right back. It's about to cut off, okay?
40 years after these population policies supported by the West, over 30 million Chinese men remain involuntary bachelors because of the shortage of women. This is why millions of unemployed men from rural areas move.
Let's pause that for Instagram and bring that back because that was some deep shit. What are we at? 28? Let's bring it back to like 27. Started from here. Hold on. Let's get them back. How many people we got? Okay. All right, so we're going to start it again.
I need to be very clear about the role of UNFPA. Those awards were given by the United Nations member states. That is it. We carry out their instructions.
At that time, the United States was the most important member state, contributing 40% of the budget. Was the UN Population Fund simply the puppet of its benefactors? 40 years after these population policies supported by the West, over 30 million Chinese men remain involuntary bachelors because of the shortage of women. This is why millions of
Shit, how many million? Was it, I want to hear how many million it was. I want to hear how many million it was, because I forgot just that fast. Come on. Let's play it again, Sam.
40% of the budget. Was the UN Population Fund simply the puppet of its benefactors? 40 years after these population policies supported by the West, over 30 million Chinese men remain involuntary bachelors because of the shortage of women.
30
This is why millions of unemployed men from rural areas move to the city. Supported by the West, over 30 million Chinese men remain involuntary bachelors because of the shortage of women. This is why millions of unemployed men from rural areas move to the cities.
So that was
Activist
30
Du Yin
million
visits the parents of Pang Shuting, a little girl.
Involuntary bachelors. 30 million men. So that's 30 million men that can't find a wife. Now, I want you to think about that in terms of the United States of America, right? Thank you, Boomer. I'm sorry, I got distracted. So 30, let's think about this in the United States of America, okay? See, we think that, the white supremacists is always hundreds of years in advance. They're thinking about hundreds of years in the future. See, when they did this, they knew what effect that would have on the population. They knew what effect, and I just want you to think about what's going on in black families, and I want you to think about the fact that there are many women like myself, okay, educated, and I don't have no degree, I just mean smart, like, you know what I mean, but there are those that have those pieces of paper. They have that type of education, educated, single, no children. You don't think that was a design? And now that we are left single, educated, no children, every single commercial on TV is get with a white man. Every single one, I swear to God. Like, I'm like, is there any black women with black men on TV aside from Power? And you see how that's going. Tasha hate what's his name? Ghost. And Ghost hate Tasha. That's like, name me a black couple on TV. I mean, it's okay, This Is Us. Yeah, no. They got a new show coming out with an African lady and a big fat white dude. All the commercials. Let's keep going.
Appeared. But he doesn't have good news. there is still no trace of their 3-year-old daughter.
How am I doing? I don't know. As we never found blood anywhere, I believe she is still alive. I wait for signs of life every day. I'm very worried.
The girls are often abducted by someone from the village. Before the child reaches the person who contracted to have her taken, she will have passed through many hands, from the kidnapper to middleman, from the village to the city, and from there, often to another province. With each transaction, the price goes up. Ultimately, the product, the girl, costs...
Pause. So now girls are so valuable. Before they was trying to kill them. Okay? They all kind of shit. They were trying to kill the girls. And now girls are so valuable that they're kidnapping them at 3 for a marriage and adulthood. Let's keep going.
It's roughly $8,000. And for the buyers, the deal always pays off.
If the son doesn't like the bride after all, or if the two don't make a good match, then the parents can still marry the young girl off to another family. After all, they raised her as their own daughter in a way. A high bride price is often agreed upon. For them, it's worth it either way.
Statistics in India show the higher the surplus of men, the higher the crime rate and the number of violent crimes against women. The Indian government has since reacted and outlawed sex determination in the early 1990s. And yet, there has never been as many abortions of girls as today. Because with ultrasound technology, sex determination has become cheap and safe. Despite the ban, it's only a question of money to find a doctor who is willing to break the law and reveal the gender of the unborn child. The middle class in India is growing, and as expected, educated Indians want fewer children. Little has changed about the preference for sons, especially in the upper class. Amisha was 25 years old when she married a computer scientist. Her father-in-law was a high-ranking government employee. In India, the bride must pay the groom's family a dowry. Amisha gave her in-laws an apartment.
Pause. In India, the groom must pay the bride a dowry. So this is again what I mean when I say they hid their white supremacy and fed it to the Asian countries in the wrapping paper of their own cultural practices. So in China, they just don't want girls, they just want a boy. And in India, they specifically don't want a boy. They specifically don't want a girl because they don't want to have to pay the money for the wedding, for the dowry for the wedding. So you see how they feed into the cultural norms of said country. It doesn't matter what the cultural norms are. They use them in a way that benefits white supremacy. Let's just keep going.
Having a son is like winning the lottery for some people in India.
मतलब उन लोगों को लड़के की चाह
They wanted me to have a son.
मतलब वो मानते थे कि
It had to be a boy.
लड़के के बिना
A son and heir for the clan.
कुल दीपक तो चाहिए
I was kept completely in the dark. They said, "Come see the doctor." So I did. I never knew what they had discussed with the doctor. If it was a girl, the doctor would say, Jai Mata Di, the holy goddess. That was their code word. Then they would know I was expecting a girl. The doctor then gave me an injection in my belly, and when I woke up, the baby in my belly was gone.
Boom. This woman I want you to hear her story again. I'm gonna bring it back.
I was kept completely in the dark. They said, "Come see the doctor." So I did. I never knew what they had discussed with the doctor. If it was a girl, the doctor would say, Jai Mata Di, the holy goddess. That was their code word. Then they would know I was expecting a girl. The doctor then gave me an injection in my belly, and when I woke up, the baby in my belly was gone. They did that 6 times in 8 years.
6 fucking times. 6 times. Did you see the pain in that woman's face? Yo, the first time I watched this documentary, like, she fucked me up. Just the look on her face, like, that shit looked like it fucking killed her. And she didn't have no control over it, no nothing. I want you to keep watching.
Not only did my daughters die, I died during all this too. I'm dead inside.
I'm dead inside.
When I was pregnant with the daughter I have now, they tried the same thing again. But I got sick and went to my mother's. They wanted to pick me up and take me to the doctor, but I refused to go.
Amisha was lucky. A lawyer for human rights took on her case. He had her in-laws put in jail for a short time and negotiated a settlement. But he couldn't help her get over the loss of her 6 daughters. It has gone virtually unnoticed.
She got to that 7th one and ran. She was like, no more. No more. And you know what's interesting to me about the fact that these countries do that? What's interesting is that they blame the woman for having girls, but genetically it's the man's fault. It's genetically it's the man who makes your child a woman or you know, whether your child is a male or a female, DNA wise, not what they feel in their soul, because you know that's something totally different. But as far as DNA wise, you know, like, it's the man who makes that. So it's always interesting to me how many years, you know, the white man has pretty much blamed the white woman for having a boy child, and it's really y'all fault. But okay, let's keep going. the man's fault, not y'all.
Fewer and fewer girls are being born.
My jet.
Today, there is officially a shortage of 177 million. And the number of countries that are culling daughters is growing. There are currently 90.
Pause and rewind. There's a shortage of how many people? Hold on. Sorry. It's so much information in this shit. Here we go.
It has gone virtually unnoticed that fewer and fewer girls are being born. Today, there is officially a shortage of 177 million. And the number of countries that are culling daughters is growing. There are currently 19. As in China and India, the lack of women of marriageable age in South Korea has now become a
177 million girls are missing.
Amisha was lucky. A lawyer for human rights took on her case. He had her in-laws put in jail for a short time and negotiated a settlement. But he couldn't help her get over the loss of her 6 daughters. It has gone virtually unnoticed that fewer and fewer girls are being born. Today, there is officially a shortage of 177 million. And the number of countries that are culling daughters is growing. There are currently 19. It's growing. There are currently 19. As in China and India, the lack of women of marriageable age in South Korea has now become a problem. Just like in China and India, the lack of women of marriageable age in South Korea has now become a problem.
Yes, there are too few women here, so the farmers can't find wives. They look for one somewhere else. They say it costs around $10,000 to get one from Vietnam.
Boy!
These women are usually about 20 years.
So now, women are so valuable. They paying 10 grand for a woman. 10 grand. So I also want you know what else is interesting to me? When you think about the fact that the Chinese are like spreading out to every fucking country, impregnating women. In Jamaica, in African countries. They are over in these places trying to take over economically, impregnating women, having children, having babies all over the place, getting married because they don't have no women. And I also want you to think about this in the context of, think about how we keep complaining about how Asians, particularly the men in their shops, are treating black women. They killed their own women. Literally, I'm not bullshitting. They literally was killing the girls. That if you was here earlier in the video, it said beat it out, stomp it out, kill it. Whatever you do, but don't have it. So this is what they were doing to their own women. Not women, to their own girls, their own daughters. Why do you think that's no wonder they have no bones, no angst, no nothing about smacking a black woman in a nail shop? You know, I was watching, I'm about to get upset in a second. I was watching this one thing and I was but look, fuck it. Okay? I was watching in Chicago and they sat down and had a fucking meeting on the goddamn radio with the Chinese people. This is who you negotiating with. You negotiating with a group of people that killed their women. They killed their baby girls. And you're expecting them to look at your community, which they already view as animals. You're expecting them to look into your community and treat you with respect. It's never going to fucking happen. These men don't treat their own women with respect. Like, and that's a problem that I have with women who want to talk about toxic masculinity. Us as black women, we shit. Our men may recently have taken other points of view, but for the most part, our men treat us way better than all them other men treat their women. They literally killing their girl babies. When do we don't do that? Our men don't do that to us. They might have a sad face because they done had 6 girls, you know what I'm saying? But they're not going to be sitting here talking about, oh, you know, like, no. These men in these other communities and other cultures and other races, they are straight. Look at what they doing. And you think he's going to be gentle with your nails, boo? Okay. I'm done with my rant. Okay, let's go back to the documentary. Okay. I'm sorry.
Years old and give birth to very lovely children. There are many of these women living in our area.
A lucrative business has emerged around women as a commodity. That which is missing in one's own market after decades of selective abortion is simply imported from poorer neighboring countries. But South Korea faces another problem. Nowadays, many South Korean women do not want to have children at all. The population is drastically declining. Once again, politics has intervened with drastic measures. Whereas young women 60 years ago were encouraged to have abortions, now it is strongly frowned upon and criminally prosecuted to terminate a pregnancy.
Propaganda. Now I want you to see that's why it's been so difficult for me to do a post on this, because I couldn't do a post. I probably could only do it this way, and I'm so happy that, like, I literally downloaded this program for YouTube today and played with it today. Because I wanted to do this way for us to break this shit down. So, the other layer about this is the fact that now the women don't want to have babies, right? Their propaganda was so successful that the few girls that they do have don't even really want to have babies. They chilling. You know what I'm saying? They chilling. I want you to keep that in mind. I took that kind of personal because I ain't got no kids myself. So now the propaganda has worked so well that they don't even want to have kids. And now, as we go on with this, we're going to see that they will switch up the propaganda. And now, just look at the difference. And they shape their mind one way with propaganda, and now they're going to try to shape their mind the other way with propaganda. Let's keep going.
Lee Ha-young and Wang Shisong, 2 students from Seoul, recalled what they learned at school on the subject of abortion.
Pause! Where did the propaganda start? In the fucking school. Okay? What's going on right now in the United States and Britain, shit, for that matter? Because I saw some, I saw, what's that guy named Pierce, whatever? That the British dude, he was going in on that shit. Maybe I might play that next. He was going in. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find it. Let me see. Right now, we are having they're trying to teach the kids about 100 different genders. What's his name? Pierce? Morgan Pierce. Oh, I love y'all. Because my memory be bullshit. My memory be bullshit. Oh, hell. Me and my damn nails. Woo! Yes, I want to do a video on this too, but it's just too fucking long. It was like 10 minutes in itself and it was so good. But yeah, this is the perfect place for this. Let's do it! Boom!
You are transgender.
I transitioned from male to female, but I don't.
Pause! I want you to bust how the transgender person is confused in a motherfucker. Okay? Okay. Let's go.
I'd never referred to myself as transgender, and if I did, I think my friends would go ballistic. My opinion is there are two genders, male and female.
How many?
Sometimes you're not lucky enough to be born into the right one, so you transition into the one that you suit
Which
the
seems
most.
to me eminently sensible, and I have complete respect for people that do that. It's not an easy process, physically, psychologically, emotionally, or any of those things. I salute you for your common sense. Now, let's bring you into this equation. You think it is
How
right.
do you identify?
I'm a man. That's right. So,
And gender, what are you?
I'm a cisgendered man.
What
does that
cis mean?
So that means if you
Don't call me sis. Unless you mean S-I-S as in the prefix of sister. Shit. If you that's not what you mean, you better not call me no goddamn sis. I'm sorry. You don't have the power to name me. You can call yourself whatever the fuck you want. You want to be a heterosexual male that likes women with breasts? Fine. I mean, women with breasts and penises? Fine. Don't call me cisgender, okay? I already told y'all what I want to be named. My name is, I am an XX woman, since, I'm going to get technical. And XX meaning my chromosomes. And we're going to keep going.
you were born a woman, and therefore you still identify as a woman, so you're a cisgendered woman, I would say.
And that's because of my physical
That's because
femaleness.
you identify with how you were
What am
born
I?
originally. Well, I assume you're a cisgendered
I'm not a
man,
cis anything, mate.
if I may assume.
I'm not a cis anything.
Hello?
I'm just a man.
Well, no, but you're a cisgendered man.
No, I'm not a cisgendered anything.
But hang on.
What does cis mean?
Well, that means that you were born the way that you identify
No,
now.
I'm just born a man.
But someone who transitions.
Why are you
to be a
insisting
man-
on calling me something I'm not?
Well, you can refer to yourself as just a man if you like.
I
But
think most people identify as male or female, man or woman.
that's right. The vast majority of people. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other people who identify differently.
There are 100
lots of other
different
identities.
genders on this BBC list, apparently, right? One of them is two-spirit person, polygender, pangender, neutroids, intergender.
I have to
gender
say,
Do you know what they
non-conforming.
mean?
I have
Nicole?
no idea what they mean,
No.
and I'm part.
Right. Well,
I'm
luckily we have the
supposedly
world
part of the
expert here.
community.
What is any of this?
Look, I can't. Don't ask me to list off.
What's a
all 100.
two-spirit person?
I think that's someone who identifies with their native background into their gender.
Do you not think
Right.
this is just like a vibe that somebody's having? Like when you tick a list, male or female, doing your passport or something, is this not just this is just how they are. This is just a bit of a vibe.
Do you know what aporagender is?
No.
They're very
You
sorry
actually,
about
even
it.
though you support what the BBC is doing. This, by the way, this is the public
Is that
broadcaster.
what it is?
No, I don't know.
Hang on. The public broadcaster paid for by us with the licence fee is now instructing children. There are 100 genders they can identify as. You have come to defend it, and you don't know what half of these are.
But hang on, Piers, ignorance isn't a defence.
You're the ignorant one, and you're the one defending it.
Well, Piers, you're the one that doesn't know what it is as well, of course.
I'm about to tell you.
Do you know what?
He said you're the ignorant one, and you're the one defending it. What the fuck? You don't even know what the fuck you defended. 100 goddamn genders? How are you going to teach this to children? This is bullshit. You have the right to live your life and do whatever the fuck you want to do, but shit, don't teach my child 100 different genders. And since I ain't got no kids, your kids, don't like, what the hell? A Neutroid? Is this, like, that made me think about Jimmy Neutron. I was like, what the fuck? And that's what kids are going to do. Right there. That childish shit I did in my brain, that's the exact same shit these kids are going to do. They're going to be like, oh, you mean like Jimmy Neutron? Yeah, I'm gender neutral because it reminds me of Jimmy Neutron. The fuck? Kids don't understand this bullshit. We cannot teach this to children. But apparently, they are already teaching it to children. Let's go keep going. Okay, come on. Come on.
Gender is a fairly new word stemming from the Greek apor, meaning separate. Aporigender is an umbrella term meaning a gender separate from male, female, and anything in between, while still having a very strong and specific gendered feeling. That latter part is key, then distinguishing it from agender.
Is this how they're explaining it to children?
By the way, can you explain that to me? What does that mean?
Well, that means that someone identifies differently to you, and that's what is at the heart of this.
Can you explain what
That's just a
aporigender
personality,
is,
isn't
which is
it?
one of the 100 genders that kids now have to be? What is it?
Well, hang on, it's not university challenge.
I've just told you what it is.
No, but this is for children, Benjamin.
Right.
This is what my problem with it.
When I was a
think
child.
it is university level. For us to get our heads around 100 different gender identities, and I think Nicole makes a really good point. It is about personality.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's just their thing. If I was sat in, I mean, I spent my whole childhood watching The Animals of Farthing Wood. You know, you're impressionable. You know, you've got to be careful.
But you didn't identify.
No, but I thought I was a squirrel. I thought I was going to grow up and be surrounded in a tree, surrounded by nuts. You know,
Benjamin, what is neutroids?
That is a valid point. Kids are kids. Kids see Bugs Bunny and think they're a rabbit, you know, or a duck, or Darkwing Duck, or that shows my age right there. Ooh, that's or Rescue Rangers. I'm gonna just keep going with the old shit. Or Rescue Rangers, or DuckTales. Ooh. You know, like, kids think they're all kind of shit. Or what was the other one? Oh my gosh, what was that one? Like, I don't really understand. Like, why? What? You can't go by what kids tell you that they want to be. Kids want to be everything. Okay? Shit, how many Halloween's about to come up, and we gonna see what kids want to be coming up on Halloween. They want to be all kind. They want to be Spider-Man. They want to be, you know what I mean? Like, come on. All right, let's keep going. I don't understand why this just won't, like. I try to have things ready, and it just won't be.
Oh, come on. Are we going to go through all 100?
Do you know any of them?
I need
Well, I
to
know some
know
of them,
what
yeah. But
life and
here's my
animals
point.
are.
No offence, you come on national television to defend the BBC, telling kids there are 100 genders. I'm now reading out a number of these 100 genders. A, you've never heard of them. B, you've no idea what they are. But C, you want to encourage the BBC to instruct our kids that they should be one of these genders.
But that isn't the point. The fact is...
That is the point.
The fact is that people identify in different ways. ways. And when you get bogged down by the idea that children might know that they're different, that they might be helped to understand why they're different, that the teachers teaching them might be prepared with the apparatus to explain it to them, that is a good thing.
I think
if I may just quickly
surely.
Do you know what new choice is?
You might find it strange and unusual, and we might not be able to answer what every one of the 100 is. But that doesn't mean
don't
that
know
they
any
don't
of them.
exist. Well, I suspect you picked the
No,
two most...
I've literally,
I haven't heard of how
there's an A to B list, and I'm just picking them at random.
You have things like...
So far, I've picked 3, then you have no idea what they are. Do you know what new Troy's is?
Tell me.
Well, have a stab.
Well, okay, I don't know.
Imagine you're a 9-year-old kid and the BBC's told you to be one of these. So what's new Troy's?
Well, no, that's not what would happen. What would happen is the kid would say how they're feeling.
Here's what
and the
new
teacher-
Troy's is.
The
So
teacher might be
you want to
prepared
tell a
help
9...
explain
Have
it
you got
to
any
them.
kids?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I'm
I've got 4
27.
kids, right, including 3 boys, right? So I'm just trying to imagine a conversation with my 3 when they were 9, and my daughter's nearly 9 as well. She's like 7.5, right? New Troy's, someone with a null or neutral gender being neither male nor female, and in some cases a person who may also seek to reduce signs of their physical sex, right? New Troy's.
Which is absolutely fine if that's their vibe.
Right.
We should be teaching children not to be horrible. Like, kids can be awful. We should be teaching children to just let people get on with it, let people
Express
have their
their
own vibe. I
personalities.
keep saying vibe. I'm not a...
What is
vibe
wrong with
girl.
just being male, female?
And that's what I agree with. Just let people have their own. We should just teach kids not to be mean. No matter what, you want to be weird or, and I'm not saying being trans is weird or whatever, but that's what it is. We just need to teach kids, don't be mean. That's it. People need to find their own way sometimes, and that's what it is. But the rest of all of this is too much. It's too much. Just don't make fun of people because people got feelings. Okay? That's it. Child, I swear. I cleaned
Male or
up.
trans?
And just have your
That's
personality.
it. In other words, 3 things. You're male or female, or you identify as something else, right?
But there are
what we
lots of
don't do
something
is have
else's,
these
that's the
100
thing.
ridiculous terms that even you, the world expert on gender, has no idea what any of them are.
And I consider
right?
myself to be an expert through experience on transition.
And you've never heard of half
I
of
don't have a
these.
clue.
I mean, I feel like a bit like Diane Abbott being tested on all these details here. I'm not saying that I can know
actually, you
all
sound a bit like Diane Abbott, because she never knows what she's talking about either. So this is my point. You're not on charge.
I don't know who the fuck that is, but shit, that was shady.
If you're brief,
I don't know how we switched to having a go at Diane Abbott in this conversation.
Actually, I think the truth is that kids identify in different ways. And the real thing that we should be focused on here...
What's the job of a parent and a school teacher with a child?
It's to make them feel comfortable in who they are.
Or
And
to
do you know
offer
what?
them...
Pause. Now, Pierce makes a really good point. I want you to listen closely.
Or Benjamin, let me throw you something at you. Having been a parent of 4 kids, and I'm not using that as a stick against you, right? I just happen to have had 4 kids. And I believe the job of a parent is actually to navigate them through life, which is difficult, but actually to keep things relatively simple.
And to let the child know that they can come and talk to their parents if they feel a bit different.
And
to
I
the
know
other
if you
kids,
start telling
without
kids
it
there's
being a
100
whole
different
big
ways they can identify,
palaver.
most kids will reach a stage where just to be mischievous and to play up a bit, they'll all say, Dad, I'm new Troy's today, right?
No, I don't think you do that.
That's exactly what kids do.
He sound like a person that ain't never had no kids, that never worked with no kids. He ain't never taught Sunday school. He ain't, he never worked at a school. He never babysat. He never, nothing. He said, I don't think kids would do that. Are you kidding me? Kids can be extremely manipulative when they trying to get what they want. Whether that be candy or whatever it is. You understand what I'm saying? Get out of here. I don't think kids would do that. Yes, they would.
I'm telling you,
not in any
what kids do
serious
is
long-term
they actually,
way.
if they've got a little label they can attach themselves to and be encouraged to do it by the BBC,
Raise your child
they
in a
will do
house
it.
where they know they can talk to you if they feel differently, and there are things that we can do to help them adapt in life. The whole world shouldn't adapt for somebody's personality.
You don't agree that there are 100
Let me get a word in.
gender identities.
Well, I agree that people have identified as all these things. And the truth is, I don't accept that you can convince a kid.
So every time that somebody identifies as something, we should add that to the gender. So what if somebody decides to I watch, have you guys ever seen that show like Strange Attraction or some shit like that it's called? And I saw this one dude was like attracted to a car. So just like how Malik Yo was going around here talking about he's trans attracted, so this guy is auto attracted. I'm sorry. He's auto attracted, okay? So you mean to tell me, so now that we got a person on the book that is auto attracted, is that going to be a new gender? Get the fuck out of here, man. How many fucking new genders are we going to have every time somebody comes up with some fucking fetish? It's a new gender? Yo, go eat a...
that they are something other than they are. We talk about kids being confused by this. The truth is that if you're not a cis man or woman, then you've been confused for hundreds of years because
I'm not a cis
you're not
man.
reflected in the
You call me a
education
cis man. I'm a man.
Well, fine, and that's how you can identify.
Stop calling me. But I feel
penguin.
insulted and offended that you're calling me a cis man when I'm actually a man.
Well,
you see how this
you're
works?
offended. But look,
when you get into
the idea
the,
you can't-
You see how this works? You see how this works? I'm offended. And real talk, I am offended. I don't know what the fuck that means. I don't give a shit what your definition is. Don't call me that.
when you get into the offence business, right? When you get into the offence business where everyone is offended by all this terminology, right? Actually, I'm offended by you calling me a cis man.
And it is actually used as an insult when people are called cis.
Well, I was...
As soon as you start
I'm being called a
boxing
sissy right
people-
now, and I don't like it, Benjamin.
As soon as you box people into identities, it splits people off from each other, doesn't it?
Why
It
is
gives
this all
them
happening
100
now?
I think it gives people a sense of who they are, and I don't accept you can promote this. You know, I learned about World War II for several years at school, but I'm yet to think invading Poland is a good idea. You can't convince someone...
Can I identify?
identity.
Can I identify? There's a penguin at the Sea Life Aquarium in London that is currently being reared gender neutral. Apparently has gay parents, right?
2 mums.
I have nothing to say on this subject.
Well, hang on. Let
It's
me just say this. Can I,
This is all yours.
under this new world of self-identification, can, as I did earlier, now identify as a two-spirit neutroid penguin?
Well, you're not a penguin, because use a bit of common sense.
Why? Who says I'm not?
Well, I mean,
Why?
that's not a thing that
I'm
happens.
not-
This
why
is the
can't I be a
distinction.
penguin?
People do identify
I'm
as
actually a
different genders.
two-spirit
penguin.
neutroid pangender penguin.
I'm
And
a
how
penguin.
dare you?
People don't
How
identify
dare
as
you tell me I
penguins.
can't identify as that? How dare you offend
Well,
me?
you maybe Piers the penguin.
You see how it works, Benjamin?
But
Look,
here's-
there I am. That's me as a
You
penguin.
see how it gets
to
to
go and
a
have a
point
word
where
with your
people
doctor.
can make it ridiculous.
I am a neutroid transgender fucking penguin, bitch. Okay? How dare you tell me that I can't be a fucking penguin? Shit. I second that. What the fuck? Matter of fact, I'm a lion. I'm a lion. That's why I like my hair like this. I'm a lion. Y'all didn't know I'm a lion. Like y'all didn't. I identify as a heterosexual lion. I'm a lioness. Y'all didn't know. That's my new gender classification. Okay. Shit. Oh God, let me stop. Okay, let's go. Cause we still got the fucking
Well, only if they want to make it ridiculous. You know, common sense says that these are different
Common
genders.
sense,
Different
Benjamin.
genders that real people have identified as. They haven't identified as a penguin.
We've been male and female for 200,000.
Divine said that. Is that a male or a female? I think that's a female. Divine said that she is a giraffe. I second that. I'm going to call you a giraffe, ma'am. Okay? Use a giraffe. Okay? Are you neutroid or are you... Are you a neutroid giraffe, bitch? Or are you a transgender pan, or are you pansexual giraffe? I'm just curious. You know, are you like how do you identify? Are you like Are you gender neutral? Like, what pronoun? What's your pronoun? Like, should I call you a fucking they? Like, or he or she? Like, you gotta be specific, okay? Like, what kind of giraffe are you? Are you an albino giraffe? Shit.
1,000 years.
But we
I don't
haven't.
understand why all
That's
this
the
is.
point.
Well, we have,
Actually,
and we've
we have,
evolved at that.
Benjamin. We have.
This, what's the
What has
opposite of
risen in
evolution?
the last 2 or 3 decades? We've had a large number of people transgendering, quite rightly, as our wonderful guest has today, and they have my complete respect. What this does is actually makes, I think, people who have transgendered, it makes them figures of fun. It exposes them to needless mockery. It makes the whole thing look ridiculous. And actually, the real victims tend to be people who have transgendered and have to put up with this nonsense.
No, I don't think that's a defence of being ignorant. The fact that people
The
might
only
mock
ignorant
them is
person's
the
here.
issue with
You
people
don't.
that
You
mock.
came on to defend 100 genders. You don't know what half of them are.
Yeah, when I went to school, my teachers couldn't believe there was more than one sexuality. They were incapable of dealing when I came out as gay as a teenager.
Right.
We've gone on a journey. We're making progress.
How many sexualities do you think there are?
Well, don't ask me to.
Well, have a stab.
Well, I'm gay. There's bisexual. There's pansexual. There's all sorts.
How many
of
are there?
sexualities? Do you have an answer yourself?
No, tell me.
Well, no, because I'm not. You know.
Are there 100?
I'm not going to.
Can you be a neutroid, pansgender, gender non-conforming?
It is a basic form
bisexual? I don't know.
Well, you either love what I said sounded funny, but you see what I'm saying? Like, what type of giraffe are you, ma'am? You have to be specific.
To your own sex, or you love the opposite sex, or you like a bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nowhere else to go, is there?
You could be attracted to more than one gender. So
This
then it
takes
gets
us into
different.
the
So you
area
could be
of women
attracted to
that
the 100 genders,
have
is
sex
your
with
point.
both.
You probably won't be
So there's
attracted
probably
to
100 different sexualities now.
Well, then you'd be
Because
pansexual.
if I'm like bizarrely attracted to neutroids people, right, which I didn't know I was, but maybe I am. Maybe if there were 100 neutroids people here now, I would suddenly feel sexually attracted to them.
Oh my goodness, it's all getting ridiculous.
But does that make me a cis male neutroids ility or something? What is
I
it?
have no idea what you just said.
It won't make you pansexual because that's when you're attracted to someone regardless of
Which
how they
is
necessarily
fine,
identify.
but we don't all have to adapt to that. We just let people get on with their business.
Okay.
Let's just let people get on with their business.
Yeah.
The BBC told us this is an informed professional view from a qualified.
Gosh, I'm having a hard time over here. See? That right there. Just let people get on with their business. You do what you want to do. Be attracted to who you want to be attracted. Identify however the fuck you want to identify, okay? Shit. You want to be a lioness, okay? Be a lioness. Get you a lot of fucking crochet shit. And be a lioness. You want to be a giraffe? You know, stretch your neck. But don't try to, like, teach my kids about, you know, that. Like, come on, it's crazy. All right, we're going to go back.
Is a personal, social, health and economic education specialist. Her opinion is based on her own extensive research and many conversations with young LGBTQ people. She is not saying these are medical definitions of gender, but is talking about how people identify.
Or to put it another way, she's talking complete cobblers. Okay, thank you both very much indeed.
I think
And
we're
apologies
all
to anybody who doesn't
confused.
identify with having cobblers. Or if you're a cobbler and you make shoes, I meant shoemakers. If you have a problem with shoemakers, maybe you're a neutroid cobbler and you feel yourself strangely attracted to cobblers. In which case, good luck to you. I respect you.
Don't
My
go
cobbler's
down that
gorgeous.
route.
Maybe you're an apologender cobbler, non-conformist.
All right, let's go back to the documentary. So now, the whole point of that was, you know, them doing everything under the guise of cultural norms and how that can affect the population in the future. Because if you got a bunch of people, you know, like, here's the thing, like, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with homosexuality, the reality of the situation is if everybody on the planet was homosexual, regardless of race or whatever, there would be no more people on the planet. You have to have heterosexual people to make more people, period. Now, naturally. So, if you're trying to confuse children at such a young age, and we already know everything else that's coming. You know what? You know what else I would like to play? I wonder if it would let me. The thing is, I don't. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see which one will it open up. Okay, great. No, this is not the right Instagram. Let me think. Who had it? I can't remember. Maybe I'm gonna play the whatchamacallit, and I'll see if I can find it while this is playing. I'll see if I can find it on my phone first.
We were taught about pregnancy and abortion in elementary school. They show us films about abortion, and they say that the embryo's neck is cut in the uterus, and then the whole embryo is cut up and disposed of. That's how they explain abortion, and they say abortion is murder. This is what's taught in school and what's stuck in our minds. We're only able to view abortions as something terrible.
The young women examine the subject of abortion for their master's thesis. Byun-Hwa Soon, who directed the Women's Development Institute in Seoul for 25 years, is an advisor to the students. The students track down dubious agencies that arbitrate illegal abortions for large sums of money. Once again, women are the victims of population policy. Illegal abortions bear great health risks. But the South Korean government holds on to the ban on abortion. Today, their mission is children at all costs.
What was the government after back then when they allowed abortions? Did they want to support women's rights? Today we can see that it wasn't about that. It was about population control.
Today they can see. But back then, they were all too happy, all too willing to participate in the decimation of their own people.
They were using women's bodies as a political tool.
The South Korean government has even gone so far as to publish a map of Seoul on the internet, showing where women of childbearing age live. The darker the pink color, the greater the selection for men seeking a wife. The Chinese government has also noticed that a society without women will die out in the long run. A two-child policy has been introduced in the hope of regaining a gender balance and solving the problem of an aging population. The government is again resorting to advertisements on building facades. This time it is for daughters and therefore potential future mothers.
No girls means no daughters-in-law.
The government in India is also backpedaling. It also wants to motivate people to give birth to daughters. There is one information campaign after another. Once again, the Indian government is offering incentives.
Anyone giving birth to a daughter receives $35 and a thank you letter from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare.
Now they at the point where the propaganda, like I said before, is in favor of the girls. So you see how important propaganda is. And this is another reason why I was talking about this earlier, that I was listening to. I watched the Troy Ave interview on Drink Champs. First of all, I love Nori. That's why my stuff is called the War Report. It's after Capone and Noriega. War Report. It was definitely inspired because I'm a huge Camouflage fan. I've been like in love with like Camouflage since I was like a young girl, and I was a big Capone and Noriega fan, so it was like the two came together, War Report. But anyway, yeah, so that's just a sidebar about why things are called the War Report. I thought it would be cool because we are at war. So it was like when I had to think about what I would want to name things, that's where the name came from. But anyway, we are at war. And this is their tactics. You know, we're sitting here thinking that things are just going on just like how they are. Things are going along with their cultural norms, and in actuality, they are planning and plotting genocide. So let's keep going.
Puneet Bedi is familiar with the pressure on pregnant women. He too performs abortions, but never when it is a matter of the sex of the fetus.
Yes. So what I was saying was that the elders kept telling us, you know, that we don't need these images of ourselves on television. They kept telling us that we don't need to have the type of music that talks about ourselves the way it talks about ourselves. And let me just say, I'm a child of the 90s. I'm an 80s baby and a child of the 90s. And so when gangsta rap came out, I was not one of those people that was like, oh yeah, this is bad for the community. You know, I was sitting here talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was a huge MOP fan, you know what I'm saying? So I was out here making all these gun sounds, Smith & Wesson, you know what I'm saying? Original gun clappers, you know, like Helter Skelter, like I was that girl, you know, and where I like that type of music. So I was not on the elder side at the time saying, you know, that this thing was bad for our community. But when you sit here and you look at things like this and you see how important propaganda is, how they keep using it to sway the public opinion on whatever they want it to be swayed on. In the beginning, they swayed the public opinion to having abortions, killing that baby. Do whatever you got to do. You got to kill it, smother it, drown it, whatever. They like, you can only have one child, you know, and then, you know, now they're doing our other propaganda. Oh my God, abortion is so horrible. They do this and that to the baby, and it's, oh my God, and it's so like, you know, so now they're trying to scare and disgust the girls into not having an abortion. So whether you're whether you're pro-rights or against, you know, I just want you to take a look at how these countries are using propaganda to sway public opinion. And this is what our elders were trying to get us to see when they were protesting against all this ratchet ass TV, all this music this gangster rap that gangster twerking rap that we got. You know what I'm saying? So this is what the elders were trying to tell us. And, you know, we didn't see it at the time because we wanted to do what the fuck we wanted to do because we wanted to prove that we was grown. And with that note, I'm going to try to play this.
Dr. Bedi doesn't think much of the new government programs.
Give me one reason how I suppose as a woman, she's pregnant, who's never gone to school. The day she was born, she was told that because she's a woman, and then she gets pregnant in a new home where 7 other people are telling her every day that, you know, you will lose everything that you have in life if you produce a girl. How do you change her mindset? By showing some street play, or, you know, writing a poem, or inventing a television spot. No, it doesn't work. Now, the ultimate solution is, of course, that people start respecting girls more than boys.
Now, he's saying it doesn't work. But bullshit. Because you saw a few minutes ago how in Korea the girls don't even want to have kids. Why do you think that is? See, now that they've shaped their minds. Remember how I did the post the other day, or was it the last post I did about the girls? No, I don't think it was. I don't remember. About the girls, and I was saying that, you know, you shape a child's mind in their youth. And this is another form of that. Okay, Instagram is about to cut off in 25 seconds, so I'm going to end it and come right back. I won't even start the documentary until you come back. All right, YouTube, bear with me while I get Instagram to come back. Let's give them a few minutes. Hold on a second. All right, it looks like we're back. Okay, so we're going to start. So, I will post, hi everybody, on Instagram and on YouTube. So, Instagram, we are finishing up our documentary that we're watching. And, yeah, we're just having a discussion about it. And, you know, some laughs, you know, when we can fit some in. And yeah, so if you want to watch the documentary, you know, along with watching me, you can go on my YouTube, which is bit.ly/BREUCK YouTube. And I will post it in the chat so you guys can find it. That way you can watch me and the documentary at the same time. I worked really hard to set that up so you could do that. Okay, so yeah, so we're going to start the documentary back, and boom.
They wanted to protect the world from a population explosion, but they waged war on the poor, not on poverty. Had they supported education and the economic security of women, birth rates would have gone down on their own. Instead, they forced through contraception, sterilization, and abortion. Now, history is repeating itself. The UN Population Fund still uses 60% of its aid for family planning. And once again, private foundations demand population reduction.
Still, so they sterilized 8 million people. They killed 17 million girls. And they are still trying to tell the population some more. That's a lot of fucking people and a lot of fucking children. Let's keep going.
It makes me nervous that just as in the 1950s and 60s, it was the Rockefeller and Ford Foundation that issued marching orders to people all over the world. It makes me nervous when I hear it's the Gates Foundation now, because of its money, that's playing a preponderant role in global public health. Similarly, you know, when back in the 1950s and 60s, you had leaders from all over the world agreeing that population growth was a crisis, right? And agreeing that the United Nations had to implement crash programs. It makes me nervous now when people talk about the crisis of climate change and how it is we might even have to engage in crash programs.
Today, Africa is the main focus for population control.
Crisis, right? And agreeing that
population reduction.
It makes me nervous that just as in the 1950s and 60s, it was the Rockefeller and Ford Foundation that issued marching orders to people all over the world. It makes me nervous when I hear it's the Gates Foundation now, because of its money, that's playing a preponderant role in global public health.
What the fuck happened?
After back then when they allowed abortions. Did they want to...
Why did I? Okay, hold on. Okay.
And population reduction.
It makes me nervous that just as in the 1950s and 60s, it was the Rockefeller and Ford Foundation that issued marching orders to people all over the world. It makes me nervous when I hear it's the Gates Foundation now, because of its money, that's playing a preponderant role in global public health. Similarly, when back in the 1950s and 60s, you had leaders from all over the world agreeing that population growth was a crisis, right? And agreeing that the United Nations had to implement crash programs. It makes me nervous now when people talk about the crisis of climate change and how it is we might even have to engage in crash programs.
Today, Africa is the main focus for population control. The World Bank and the UN Population Fund are currently pumping millions into family planning on the second largest continent. And a large American corporation is supplying the ultrasound devices. As in China, South Korea and India, people in most African countries prefer sons.
Alright, so that's pretty much the end of it. It's just basically, for Instagram, it's just basically saying that, like, nobody wanted to respond. Okay. So now I want to play something else. Let's see what I can do here. And, how do you... Ciao. I just want to look at my history. Where is the one I watched about the frogs? That's what I'm trying to find right now, because there is and it's just this anti-vax lady on Instagram that I follow. Was it this? Yeah, it might have been this. This anti-vax lady. And she posted parts of this. So then I found it on YouTube. And I had heard about this guy. What the fuck is that? Oh, gracious. Crumbs from the cookie I was eating. So I'd seen this things by this gentleman before, but I had never seen anything quite this succinct. And what time is it? It was 10:55. Lord have mercy. Y'all still rocking with me? Okay. All right. Where's my other phone? Here we go. So let's just play this about the frogs. So we see how white supremacy will use whatever they have to tailor the population, because they knew ahead of time what was going to happen to theirs. I don't think they knew like the numbers. I don't think they necessarily predicted like the opioid crisis and things like that. But I think that they knew that their population it doesn't grow like as far as like ours does, and as far as like the most of the melanated people on the planet. So on top of all of this population tailoring that they're doing across the globe and here in the United States, I want you to just take a listen to some of the things that we may be drinking and ingesting from this brother Tyrone Hayes.
Before I tell you my story today, I want to start with this phrase. It's a Bantu proverb that I learned while working in Southern Africa. Loosely translated, it means I am because we are, or people are people through other people. So I never represent myself or tell my story without thanking the people who've made me who I am. First and foremost, my friends and family, especially my mother and father, for a lifetime of support, my wife, Catherine Kim, and my son and daughter for their continued support. I also have to thank the funding sources for the research that I've done. And this is also my disclosure. I have been funded by the chemical manufacturers, but they've since decided they don't like to hang out with me so much. But that's okay. I want to thank all the students that have been involved, especially the undergraduates in blue, my current laboratory, for providing a great environment with an incredibly diverse group of people that I'm certain that I learn a lot more from them than they learn from me. So now my story. About a week ago, I was in Minneapolis airport to give a similar talk. And the person, I was in a restaurant, and the person who took my order and brought me my food asked what brings you to the Twin Cities? And I said, well, I'm giving a talk in McAllister College where my daughter is. I'm a professor of biology. And she said, wow, you don't look like a professor. And I looked up and I said, well, that's funny because you look exactly like a waitress. And I don't normally judge people by their appearance, but she had the apron and the name tag and the tablet, and actually the end of the story is not true. That's the thing where you go, gee, I wish I had said. What I said was thanks for the compliment, but I didn't really mean it because I didn't really take it as a compliment. But not only do I not look like a professor, for most of my life, I haven't felt like a professor. For most of my life, I felt like just a little boy who likes frogs, who's been trying to answer this question on this book that my mom says she read to me as a baby. I don't remember it, but my mom says it's true. That all changed a few years ago when a chemical company, the largest chemical company in the world, asked me to use my expertise in studying frog hormones to try to understand if the chemical, their number one selling product, a weed killer, atrazine, if it interfered with their hormones somehow. Long story short, we examined the African clawed frog in my lab, we exposed them to this chemical atrazine, and we showed things like this, and these are testes. And you don't have to have a PhD or be a frog expert to see that there's a difference between the control and the exposed animals. The control testes, if you look at it under the microscope, is full of sperm soldiers ready to go. The atrazine-treated gonad or testes, the testicular tubules are filled with cellular debris. What's more is if you look at the young developing larvae, you often find sometimes, these are the kidneys, if you're not used to looking at frog gonads, that this is an individual though that has testes, then it has more ovaries, then it has another testes, then it has more one pair will get you in enough trouble. This situation is certainly not typical of amphibians. There are fish that are naturally hermaphrodites, but not amphibians. We later showed that some of these animals grow up, even though they're genetic males, to become completely functioning reproductive females, even though they were genetic males. We showed that in other species, the gonads look like this. So those are the testes on the top, and all of that junk in the trunk on the bottom, those are all eggs that are bursting through the surface of this male's testes. Now, I showed this to the Environmental Protection Agency because I thought they'd be interested. After all, it's the number one selling chemical in the world at the time. And they said, well, that's not really an adverse effect that would stimulate us to reassess the chemical. Now, my wife tells me that there is nothing more painful in life than childbirth.
Pause. So, in this chemical that is widely used in pesticides, it caused frogs to have different reactions. One, they completely changed genders from male to female. Or they had two genders, male and female, where they had male genitals and developed eggs. Let's keep going.
I'm gonna have to give her that. But I would guess that a dozen chicken eggs popping out of my testicles would have to be at least in the top 5 most painful experiences. The EPA doesn't think so. I thought more about why this might happen. So, for example, if this were your testis, you should make testosterone. Testosterone's a portmanteau. You know, I learned that word at age 49. So when you put two words together like smoke and fog, you get smog. Twist and jerk, you get twerk. Testosterone means testicular hormone. It's literally the male hormone. But we hypothesized that this atrazine turned on an enzyme aromatase that caused the testosterone to be converted to estrogen. And if you're a male, that means that you're using up your testosterone so you don't make sperm, but it also means that you're making the female hormone when you shouldn't be. So then I started to think, we published that in Proceedings in the National Academy of Sciences and Nature, very prestigious journals that'll get you a tenured professorship at a place like UC Berkeley. But journals that, as my mom says, how important can it be? Barnes and Noble's never heard of them. And I started to think, though, about how my work might imply things beyond frogs. So this is a pond in Lake Nabugabo in Uganda, where I started to think that this agricultural runoff might not only affect the frogs and the fish, but also the other animals that are drinking out of the water, including the humans that...
Did you hear that? He started thinking about if it did this to the frog, what does it do to humans and other animals drinking from the same water source?
Collect the drinking and cooking water from this same source. Because see, we all make estrogen in the exact same way and use it in the same way. The connection to contaminants in water might not be so obvious for us. This is my village. But things like Erin Brockovich's story and things like Flint, Michigan remind us that we don't necessarily have the resources that we think we have, the clean sources of water. A colleague of mine showed, because I don't study humans, I had to work with other people on this, that if you look at men in Columbia, Missouri, and compare the atrazine in their urine, men who have atrazine in their urine have a low sperm count and can't get their wives pregnant. And
So, a widely used chemical pesticide causes fish to A, flip genders, B, be hermaphrodites with both genders. That might be the incorrect term. I'm sorry if it is, but you get what I'm trying to say. B, be male, or C, be male, releasing eggs. They did a study on humans showing that on humans, 70-something% of those males could not get their wives pregnant.
by the way, this is the same amount of atrazine, 0.1 parts per billion, that we were using to chemically castrate and feminize our frogs.
The same amount that they were using to chemically castrate frogs.
Another colleague showed, and I've mashed the data down now, because these are atrazine levels of men who work in the fields in California, and these are atrazine levels of men who apply atrazine in California. 2,400 parts per billion. They have 24,000 times the atrazine in their urine than we use to chemically castrate frogs and fish. 24,000 times what we know is already having a negative impact on men in Columbia, Missouri. One of these guys could pee in a bucket, and I could dilute it 24,000 times and use the atrazine in their urine to chemically castrate and feminize 24,000 buckets of 30 tadpoles each.
You hear how serious this is? This is a chemical that is possibly in our water. Remember I did the whole thing on New Jersey? I feel at this point we all need to have these fucking filters in our house. I don't I'm trying to figure out now, like, how I'm gonna have to get one for myself. I already don't drink water out the tap, but I do use it when I'm cooking or, basic shit or whatever. But I'm at the point now where I don't know if that's a good idea anymore. Especially if you have children. I had a thought when I was working in the school, right? I was looking at one of the young girls one day, and the young girl had more body than me, child. Okay? And I worked at a middle school, not a high school. I worked at a middle school, and she was a freshman in the middle school. And I remember thinking to myself, Lord, like, what must be in the food? And then it hit me, we all say that. We say that all the time. We say that about our girls all the time, that if, that, oh, it must be the food. The food is making them, develop early and things like that. But let me ask you a question. Are you feeding your boys anything different than you're feeding your girls? So if you think that milk and meat and whatever else, that's my hood ass text messaging clue. But yeah, if you think that meat and whatever else is doing that to your daughter, what the fuck do you think it's doing to your son? Because hormones are hormones. So if there's a hormone that's going to make my boobs grow, if there's a hormone that's going to make me get my period early, what do you think it's doing to your son? Let's keep going.
Then a little boy who likes frogs learns phrases like environmental justice, because most of these individuals are Latinx or in California, Mexican American. And then I thought about the impact that increasing estrogen would have on humans, because the atrazine has the same effect in human cells. If you take human cancer cells, and we've done some of this work, that don't normally make aromatase or estrogen, and give them atrazine, they start making estrogen, just like we've shown in fish and frogs.
So what did I say? I asked the question, y'all. I said, if it's doing that to y'all's daughters, what is it doing to your sons? If it is making your daughter's boobs grow, and it is making your daughter have her period early, it is creating estrogen in your son as well. Let's keep going.
Reptiles and in birds. What's more is if you look at prostate cancer, there's an 8.4-fold increase in prostate cancer in their factory where they make atrazine in a community that's 80% black, 80% African American. There's studies showing that there's correlations between atrazine in their drinking water and breast cancer incidence in women in Kentucky. And that's just a correlation, but their own laboratory showed in 1994 that if you give rats atrazine, you increase the incidence of mammary cancer or breast cancer above animals that aren't exposed. This is an interesting problem because breast cancer, the #1 cancer in women, is estrogen dependent. And this aromatase that I've talked about.
Who are the leading new cases in breast cancer? So when I did the video on New Jersey, right? Text messages. When I did the video on New Jersey, we broke it down. I might play it again. If y'all let me know in the comments. Y'all want to watch it? We can watch it again. We can watch it tonight. But when I did the video on New Jersey, it broke down how all they have to do to fuck up your water on top of adding atrazine, is to not add a specific additive to the water which makes the lead stick to the pipes. If they add this particular chemical, I can't remember what it is because it's a fucking chemical, so you know the name is long as shit. But if you add this specific chemical to the water, it would make the lead stick to the fucking pipes. But if you don't add it to the water, then the lead would move along with the water to your fucking sink. So we already see how easily they can add things and not add things to water in specific fucking neighborhoods. Because they did it in Flint. They doing it in New Jersey. And God knows where else they're doing it that we haven't tested yet. Okay? Okay. Let's keep going.
Produces the estrogen during breast cancer that stimulates those breast cancers.
Yes. And we are the leading cause in getting breast cancer. So if they can release a chemical into the water that can make you get breast cancer and to make the male frogs turn into females, that's 2 birds with 1 stone. You kill the women with the breast cancer. And you can kill the males. Or will ensure that the males don't reproduce. And I'm just going to leave it at that. You fill in the rest.
Grow and divide and turn into tumors and spread. In fact, the role of aromatase is so important in breast cancer that the #1 treatment for breast cancer right now is a chemical called letrozole. It works by knocking out aromatase, decreasing estrogen, so that even if you have cancerous cells, they don't grow and turn into a tumor. That drug, though, has to work against the 80 million pounds of atrazine that we're using every year. That's the #1 contaminant of drinking water that does exactly the opposite. I got in trouble because I pointed out that Novartis Oncology in the year 2000 offered treatments for cancers that range from breast cancer. So the same company that gave us 80 million pounds of this contaminant associated with breast cancer was also selling a chemical that does the opposite to treat breast cancer. Yeah, they weren't too happy about me pointing that out. I became concerned. I'm just a little boy who likes frogs, but I became concerned because if you look at the top 13 cancers you're going to get in this country, blacks, African Americans are more likely to get 11 out of the 13 and more likely.
I want you to really fucking listen right here. Okay? Really, 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 really listen. Okay? What y'all saying in the chat? Okay. Y'all feeling where I'm going with this. Okay, so let's keep going. I want y'all to really, really listen to what he's about to say.
Likely to die from 13 out of 13. Biology? My colleagues who are experts in cancers tell me that less than 30% of cancer can be explained by genetics. That means that when the doctor tells you that you're going to get breast cancer, more likely if your sister, your aunt, or somebody in your family has it, they're not telling you have bad genes necessarily. They're telling you that you've been exposed to the same crap as the rest of your family.
Boom!
I never represent.
Pause!
I never represent. I never.
Why is it not being my... Oh, it's starting all the way from the beginning. Fuck. Fuck. Anyway, boom. So when they tell you that you are more genetically, when they tell you that, you know, because your parents had it, you can get it. It's not necessarily because it's in your DNA. It's what you eating and what you drinking. That y'all all are feeding from the same water hole. That's why. Y'all all drinking the atrazine. We all. Shit, because I ain't exempt. I'm black. And I don't like living in white neighborhoods. So, I've done it. I don't like it. I need my people. So, You know, I'm in these neighborhoods where they're possibly poisoning our water too. That's why I'm really thinking about, like, yo, I need to take my money and buy that $200, was $200, $250. The water purifier thing that the white lady had in her bathtub. And then I want to get something that also doesn't need any filters. Like, I was looking at somebody had something where I might play that next. A video where it was like copper piping that was like a coil, and then you kind of heat up the water, and then the water cools down as the steam goes through this coiling, and then that creates distilled water. Because ultimately you need a way to make the water clean that is available to you in case you don't have filters. What if there's a chance, you know, what if you get to, I always think of everything as far as The Walking Dead. You know, I don't really watch The Walking Dead anymore. Like, after they, like, killed the Asian dude and the redhead white dude, like, you know, I was like, this is a lot. You know, Negan was a lot for me. So I haven't really watched since then. But, you know, I always think of everything as along Walking Dead situations. If we were in a situation of The Walking Dead, where am I going to order filters online? Nowhere. So I need a way to be able to make clean water that does not require a filter. So I want to be able to have 2 different type of filters in my home. So I'm just sharing with you guys, you know, the crazy, it's not even crazy, the practical shit that I think about in my head, because this world is crazy. Now, let me see if I can find the exact spot that we was at before, because I fucked up. Oh my God, I did it again.
Or tell my story without minorities. Was exposed to. Affected by atrazine, that its grandmother was exposed to abortion. The son's organism has taught me a great deal about this aquatic organism, to the same crap as the rest of your family. When the doctor tells you that you're going to get breast cancer, more likely, if your sister, your aunt, or somebody in your family has it, they're not telling you have bad genes necessarily. They're telling you that you've been exposed to the same crap as the rest of your family. Because if you're a minority, if you're an immigrant, if you're first generation, if you're low income, you're more likely to live in and more likely to work in areas where you're exposed to chemicals that we know are associated with adverse health outcomes. What's more is, with the exception of HeLa cells, the cancer cells that we use to study cancer don't come from minorities. So even if we find the cure, Coleman, it may not be applicable to people who would need it the most.
Did you hear that? They're not even making the cure to genetically work for us. They're making sure that here's why the whole vaccination shit is bullshit. You really think, you see what I'm saying? When they have something that could help you, they would rather formulate that thing that could help you to make sure that it couldn't help you. And then when they're giving it to you, they're giving you a fucking placebo, knowing that it's not going to fucking help you. And I feel that's the case with a lot of this fucking medication that we're taking, because they say that a lot of this medication, remember, I can't remember which video it was, but I had played a video of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talking about how when she did a lecture at one of those white schools, and I believe it was in Boston, she said, because Boston has a lot of prestigious medical schools. And I believe she was saying that when she did a lecture there, they were like, you know, maybe that's why we do all of our research study on white mice. White mice with that are what's the word I'm looking for? Why am I drawing a fucking blank? Albinoid mice. So as we're sitting here taking medication that we think is going to work for us, it's not even genetically formulated to work on melanin. Let's keep going.
So So I think what's happened is my interest in this aquatic organism has taught me a great deal about this aquatic organism. Because we all start out as aquatic in the amniotic fluid. And these chemicals that I study in my tadpoles can cross the placenta. In fact, we now know that your children will be exposed to over 300 synthetic chemicals before they leave the womb. And most of them, we have no idea what the biological impact is. For atrazine, we do know from rats, which are a proxy for us, that if you give rats atrazine, an EPA lab showed those rats are more likely to have an abortion. Of those rats that don't have an abortion, the sons are born with prostate disease. Of those rats that don't abort, the daughters are born with impaired memory development, such that when they grow up, their offspring experience retarded growth and development. And it was these studies that moved me to most, that made me realize I can't just be a little boy who likes frogs. Because see that?
So you see that? What's the word I'm looking for? One level of shit. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank right now. Maybe I've been drinking too much. One level of genetics. One level. Trickle down to 3 generations. The exposure was here. He didn't say exposure here, exposure there, exposure there. He said exposure here causes this and this. So even if you understand what I'm saying when we say that the white supremacists is hundreds of years in advance, they not trying to just fuck you up. They trying to fuck up your children and your children's children's children. Because you and your children are in the same fucking house, right? So now you have drank the water. Your children drank the water. So you producing children that their children and children's children will be affected. Now they're drinking the water. So on top of it being 2 generations underneath you, it'll be 3. Y'all ain't hearing me.
On the bottom, that rat on the bottom never saw atrazine. The rat on the bottom was affected by atrazine that its grandmother was exposed to. The rat on the bottom never saw atrazine. The rat on the bottom was affected.
I hate when I be extra dramatic about pausing and then it doesn't pause. It like really fucks me up. But yeah, like the rat on the bottom did not get exposed.
By atrazine that its grandmother was exposed to. So when I think about my little girl, my son, the fact that my grandchildren, that your grandchildren could be affected by chemicals that we're using today, it moved me in a very different way than just a little boy who likes frogs. It's just a correlation, but we already know, studies have already been done by the Center for Disease Control and others, that if you get pregnant doing peak atrazine contamination, you're more likely to have babies with birth defects, including malformed genitals in the male babies. The EPA has acknowledged this, but they say, quote, a monetary value is assigned to disease impairments and shortened lives and weighed against the benefits of keeping a chemical in use. A monetary value. If you look at California, I'm often giving this talk outside of California, we're the 5th or 7th, depends on who you talk to, largest economy in the world because of agriculture, not because of tech or Hollywood. We produce 50% of the U.S.'s food. Half of the U.S.'s food comes from California. As a result, we use more pesticides than any other state, and 90% of the workers are Latinx.
So 50% of our food. And here's the thing. Here's where, like, let me tell you something. Any man, let me fix myself up before I say this. Let me fix myself up, okay? Let me take a sip. Any man that wants to get with me, I don't see myself staying in New York when I have children. I want to move somewhere where I can grow my own food, where I have better gun laws. Because these pesticides that they're using is on the vegetables. You see what I'm saying? So this is affecting our vegetables. It's affecting our meats. It's affecting everything. So you want to be with me? You better be talking about farms. You better be talking about, and I don't have a green thumb, but I'm willing to learn. Okay? I want to learn about shit like that. Because this shit is getting, I want to be able to grow my own food, filter my own water when I have kids, and I don't want to be forced to give my child vaccination shots. So if you want to stay in New York, don't even talk to me, because I already know that all roads lead to getting the fuck out of here. Okay? I know that ultimately I'm either going to be vegan or I'm going to grow my own goddamn animals and my own vegetables, and then I eat whatever the fuck meat I want like that. My great aunts and uncles used to do it. Well, I can do it too. I can learn. It's probably in my DNA. Probably have ancestral memory. Okay. So don't think like you know, a lot of guys like don't think I'm one of these couch. Don't let the glamorous shit fool you. Don't think I'm one of these couch standing chicks, bottle popping. No, honey. I want to grow my own food. I want to get my nails done and then put on rubber gloves. I'm going to put on rubber gloves, okay? Put all this shit up in a ponytail, okay? And start growing my own goddamn food, because this shit is getting fucking scary. Now let's keep listening.
If I put in red here the top 10 counties for agriculture, these are the counties, the 30% that makes us the 5th largest economy in the world. What if I plot onto that the 30 poorest towns in California? Environmental justice. So the people who make us the 5th largest economy in the world are the same people who are paying that cost that the EPA talks about. And so when I thought about this as a little boy who likes frogs, it motivated me to cross the line, so to speak. Crossing that line cost me. The chemical manufacturers set out to discredit me with personal attacks. They said, hey, he's biologist turned activist. Turned activist. And turn. You can't be a scientist and an activist. They tried to discredit me, but when they were interviewed by New Yorker magazine, they said it simply wasn't true. I must be crazy. I must be making it up. They said, and I quote, I am troubled by a suggestion that we have ever tried to discredit anyone. Our focus has always been on communicating the science and setting the record straight. I am troubled at the suggestion that we've ever tried to discredit anyone. Where on earth would I have gotten the idea that they tried to discredit me? Well, it turns out they settled out of court a $105 million lawsuit, and all of their secret, like how are we going to get Tyrone notes, came out from their meetings. Their strategy became public. And look what the first goal of the science was in their program. Where on earth did anybody get the idea that they would ever try to discredit anyone? I had to make a change. Academia, my advisor told me, don't be an advocate. Let the science speak for itself. But I had to think about this, that we're being rewarded.
Pause. Now we're going to get onto something else. This is why the ancestors had me do this today, because I'm just using this to just spider off into a whole bunch of different other topics. This brings up another topic of us having seats at the table, okay? Which I believe is complete bullshit. I believe that the generation above us, our parents have showed us that seats at the table don't mean shit. It's just a way to shut you the fuck up. Because if you have a seat at the table, they don't allow you to do anything when you're sitting at this proverbial table. They don't allow you to do anything for your people. And if they do, and if you do try to buck up and do something for your people, they'll find you dead in the river. Don't forget about the judge in New York. There was a judge in New York. Everybody kept talking about how she was Muslim, but other people were saying that she's not really Muslim. Her husband was Muslim. I don't really know, but they were really trying to make it a Muslim thing, and I don't think it was a Muslim thing. It was a black thing. They killed her ass, and then they found her in the fucking Hudson. And they said she committed suicide. What they didn't tell you, that she was the judge in a couple of cases against the police. And she was awarding people judgments for police brutality. And all of a sudden, they found her ass in the fucking Hudson. And you want to tell me about seats at the table? If you try to do something for your people at this proverbial table, you will find your ass floating. We're going to keep going.
Awarded in the ivory tower, promoted for publishing things that the public doesn't have access to. I changed my mind about this philosophy because Syngenta, the company, says on their website, they assume no obligation to update forward-looking statements to reflect actual results. Pardon my language, but who says shit like that? But what concerned me more is that the EPA says that the ultimate decision of whether or not to ban atrazine is much bigger than science. It weighs in public opinion. And I thought the EPA is counting on my mom. The EPA is counting on you to help it make its decision. And I'm publishing my work in journals that you can't get in Barnes & Noble. We have to change the way we do things in the ivory tower. There's a philosophy by a great thinker that goes like this: those who have the privilege to know have the duty to act. This guy said that, by the way. And I didn't grow up privileged. I don't know about you. All I know is that now I'm here. Now you are here. You are privileged and you have a duty. And I've reasoned that we can change the past, but only if we act now, while it is still the future.
Now, hold on. I want to see if I can play this last video, and then I'm going to take my behind to bed. But let me see if I can find it. Maybe I should put some music on. So it's not just dead air. What the fuck is that? Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find this next video. Jamaica, that must be old. Jamaica Carnival was the beginning of the year. That must be a replay. Why is this not letting me find it? Same person, yes, the same one. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Let me just find it. Let me find it. Okay. I must be overlooking it. Here it is. Okay. Alright. Boom. Now let me bring this big, make this bigger. Uh-oh. Make this bigger. Okay. Oh. Okay, check this out.
Warrior mode. No, ma'am, your child wasn't born homosexual. That's actually potassium hydroxide that's in the baby formula that you're feeding the child. Look it up. Yeah, scientists at the University of Cambridge did a 20-year extensive study on the correlation between baby formula and their likelihood to become homosexual. Look it up. Yeah, they found that babies given formula at birth for the first 1 to 2 years increases their chances of becoming homosexual. They also found that potassium hydroxide was the main reason for this. Potassium hydroxide is one of the ingredients used to make most baby formulas. Look it up. Yeah, potassium hydroxide is an inorganic compound with the formula KOH. Yeah, this compound is used to manufacture biodiesel fuel, soaps, and gasoline. Look it up. Some astonishing findings. Babies who were breastfed for the first 1 to 3 years of their life, only 3% grew into adults who were either homosexual or lesbian. Babies who were fed the formula for the first 1 to 3 years, 79% of them were
So.
Warrior mode. No, ma'am, your child.
So. Now. They can get you with the water. And get your children's children with the water. And now, if that wasn't enough, if the water wasn't enough, we'll get you with the formula. Let's move to the next one because this is slides here.
Were attracted to the same sex by their teenage years. Look it up.
To the Wallkill River National Wildlife Refuge, but he had no idea he was crossing paths with gender-crossing fish.
This is really concerning for me because, I like this area, I live around this neighborhood.
Over the last several years, the U.S. Geological Survey has tested the water in nearly 300 fish in 19 wildlife refuges in the Northeast, including the Wallkill River and Morris County's Great Swamp. It found that something in the water is tampering with the hormones of 85% of the male smallmouth bass and a quarter of the male largemouth bass and causing them to develop female reproductive traits. Fred Pinckney co-authored the study.
It resonates with the public when you see...
I thought it was very interesting that they tried to use this guy, Fred Pinckney, like he fucking, is the originator of this study when we all know it was Tyrone.
Things like this that scientists frankly don't fully understand.
One male largemouth bass from the Great Swamp, but all 5 male smallmouth bass from the Wallkill showed the female traits. It's a phenomenon researchers say they're finding across the country and the world.
were attracted to the same sex by their teenage years. Look it up.
To the Wallkill River National Wildlife Refuge.
God. What? I hate mouse pads.
If this is naturally occurring.
Really, this is just pointing attention to the widespread nature of this problem.
As a society, America has gotten smart about disposing of medications. That is, after years of flushing birth control pills and other prescription meds down the toilet, only to have them show up in waterways. In the Wallkill, researchers suspect it's...
Pause. Who flushes pills down the toilet? Unless you hiding shit from the police and they coming in your door. Who flushes pills down the toilet? Let me ask y'all a question, black people. When y'all done with y'all pills, do y'all flush them down the toilet? YouTube? Instagram? Huh? Anybody? Bueller? No. I don't flush pills down the toilet. They trying to sit there and blame it on women flushing birth control pills down the fucking toilet. Bullshit! It's because you guys are spraying atrazine. See? And even this Fred guy, you can't even fucking trust his judgment because he bullshitting already. Tyrone had already told us. We called Tyrone. And Tyrone told us the truth.
Several culprits or combination of pharmaceuticals from human waste that the upstream water treatment plant can filter, or antibiotics fed to livestock, or pesticides from farm runoff. Pinckney says the Wallkill points to human influence because all 5 fish are intersex. It qualifies the popular New Jersey to New York.
Isn't that an interesting term that they used? Intersex. Don't we hear that term here? Intersex.
Fishing spot for a follow-up study. In the meantime, researchers and river keepers wonder about the impact of eating any of the contaminated fish.
In the meantime, it amounts to an uncontrolled experiment on the environment. And
they ain't talking about eating the fish. They not talking about drinking the water. You see? They still trying to cover this up.
And on human health.
What's disturbing to river keepers and researchers is the refuges are protected lands meant to keep pollution away if this is naturally occurring.
Really, this is just pointing at...
Business students have been looking for clues in the Salinas Valley.
50% of the U.S.'s agricultural products come out of California. It's something like 85% of the country's lettuce comes out of Salinas, 90% of the almonds. It's called the salad bowl of America. California uses more pesticides than any other state. The second biggest is Florida. Things like chlorpicrin is used out here on the strawberries. Chlorpicrin is a nerve gas. These are guys who are applying it, they're out there picking it. Methyl bromide is a fumigant, something you pump into the soil. What are some of the other big ones, you guys? Some atrazine. This will all end up in the river that we're working in here. It might look like we're out in the bush somewhere, but 15 feet on either side, we're surrounded by agriculture, and the runoff ends up in this river. All of the
Business students have been looking for clues in the Salinas Valley.
50% of the U.S.'s agricultural products come out of California. It's something like 85% of the country's lettuce comes out of Salinas, 90% of
85% of the country's lettuce. Vegans. 85% of the country's lettuce comes from California. Where they spraying the fucking food with atrazine.
It's called a salad bowl of America.
50% of the almonds. Everything, you know what? And this spiders off into another conversation. The fucking Impossible Burger. I feel. See, remember when it was a huge problem when they all these things came out, how the fucking hamburgers at McDonald's wasn't real meat, and then they came out with the 100% Angus burger. I feel that the goddamn Impossible Burger is just a way for them to be able to sell you some meatless shit. Because before, they were selling you meatless shit, but they wasn't calling it meatless shit. Now, they actually calling it meatless Impossible fucking burger. Okay, Instagram, I gotta come back in 26 seconds. But you know what I'm saying? Before, it was a problem. People didn't want meatless. So now they're taking advantage of the whole vegan thing. Hold on, let me wait for Instagram to come on, because let me give them a second, because it's not their fault. That's interesting. Okay, that's enough time. You know, I ain't got no patience. But yeah, I feel like it's there. You know, that's how they are selling meatless products. It's cheaper to make meatless products, because if you look at the calories and the nutritional facts of the Impossible Burger, it has more calories than a fucking regular burger. It has more fat than a regular fucking burger. What the hell is in this Impossible shit? How the hell is it possible to have more calories and more fat if it's plant-based? That fucking confuses me. And at first, I was super excited about the opportunity. And then, how the hell are you selling vegan burgers on white bread? That right there was a red flag to me. You can't sell a vegan burger on white fucking bread. That to me is like an oxymoron, and it don't make no fucking sense. Because I already told y'all, I try very hard not to eat white bread, white flour, white sugar. So I was like, okay, well, if they're going to serve a vegan burger, they're going to have like a whole wheat bun option. And you know, no. So you mean to tell me you're going to serve the plant-based option on bleached flour, and then it has more calories and more fat than the regular beef burger? Get the fuck out of here. So, now California makes 50%, they said 70%, 80%, that's what it was. 80% of the country's lettuce, 50% of the country's almonds. It is the salad bowl of America. So when you think that you're to be eating healthier by eating vegetables and shit, they just sprayed the fucking vegetables with goddamn atrazine.
California uses more pesticides than any other state. The second biggest is Florida.
Florida.
Things like chlorpicrin.
Other place where you buy a fucking fruit from in the United States.
Used out here on the strawberries, chlorpicrin is a nerve gas. These are guys who are applying it. They're out there picking it. Methyl bromide is a fumigant, something you pump into the soil. What are some of the other big ones, you guys? Diazomethazine. This will all end up in the river that we're working in here. It might look like we're out in the bush somewhere, but 15 feet on either side, we're surrounded by agriculture, and the runoff ends up in this river. All of the
Business students have been looking for clues in the Salinas Valley.
50% of the U.S. is agricultural property. They're in a sack. These are actually yolked eggs ready to be laid. What's happening is you're skewing sex ratios. You can get genetic bottlenecking, which can cause crashes. And quite frankly, if you're a genetic male, it'd be nice if you developed
genetic bottlenecking. That was a really interesting term to me as a single woman with no children who see a lot of other single women with no children, or at least single women. Genetic bottlenecking. Ladies, do you kind of feel like there's genetic bottlenecking within the Black community?
A genetic male, and now we have a chemical very common in the environment that's effectively sex reversing animals. I'm going to show you something pretty amazing, scientifically speaking. The one that's sort of remarkable is this pair. These are both males. The one on the bottom, acting as the female, we affectionately refer to as Darnell. He's a genetic male that not only...
So for y'all that's on Instagram, he pulls out a fish tank of two males basically having sex. Two male frogs having sex.
A female, he lays eggs like a female. She has been exposed to atrazine all of her life. I don't even really know how to reference it. This is Darnell's third clutch. So Darnell has sons and daughters that we've grown up. They're in a sack. These are actually yolked eggs ready to be laid. What's happening is you're skewing sex ratios.
Next slide.
This is actually her second clutch for today. She has been copulating for getting close to 24 hours now. This is probably one of the most remarkable things I've seen in my work. But I personally have mixed emotions. I'm very excited about the science and trying to understand the mechanism. But on the other hand, I am worried. This is the most common contaminant in ground and surface water and drinking water. And the level of atrazine that it took to make this male turn into a female is 3 times less than what's allowed in our drinking water.
What's in our water is 3 times less the amount needed to do that to a fucking frog.
If there is a black gay agenda, I need to be CC'd on that email because I didn't get notification of it.
Really not necessary. Okay, that's the guy who was talking in the video, so I think he put that whole little thing together. But yes. So, that is it for tonight. We talked about a variety of things. We spoke about how they used population control in Asia and how that affects. They started to that in about the 1950s, and understand that Margaret Sanger was very influential with that. You know, Margaret Sanger, who is the founder of Planned Parenthood. She was very financially influential, but, you know, also intellectually influential into the population control efforts in Asia, or her work. And also, you know, Bill Gates, you know, is pretty much doing the same thing right now in Africa. And I'm so confused sometimes. And that's why, you know, that's why the elders say, like, we are doomed for a lack of knowledge, because it is confusing to me as a person who knows the history of genocide on the continent of Africa. It is confusing to me that the leadership in certain African nations would welcome the Gates in as that would welcome the Gates Foundations and all their efforts to sterilize and population control and birth control, and they don't see a correlation between that and genocide. That blows my mind. That I don't see. how that's the case, but it is. And so, you know, they're doing the exact same things right now in Africa. You know, because while they were doing soft genocides, you know, where you give people propaganda influenced choices. Ooh, that was good. That's exactly what it is. They gave the people, because they use the culture norms, the cultural norms of the people with propaganda to get people to agree to their own fucking genocide. And so, you know, you can't really look at, like you look at, you know, the Western nations and be like, oh, you know, this was horrible what they did, and they agreed to it. They agreed to do that to their own people. So, no, I do not, Phoenix, no, I don't believe in immunization at all. At all. So that's another thing. Brothers, if you're trying to vaccinate, don't even come in my face. I will not. And if you made the decision to vaccinate your child already, you know what I'm saying, and you made an uninformed decision to vaccinate your child, there's nothing you could do about that. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta hope that you can move on and try to do the best with what it is. But I am an informed person. So why in the hell would I, knowing what I know in 2019, going on 2020, have a baby and then vaccinate that baby? I'm not, nah, nigga. Not me. I'd rather not have the baby. I want sons. It is proven that these vaccines, they alter them to specifically target boys. I'm not running that risk. Not with my fucking son. My son is going to be a fucking warrior. You hear me? My son is going to be a warrior. Because any man I choose will be a warrior. So he's going to have the DNA from his mama that's a warrior. He's going to have the DNA from his daddy that's a warrior. My son is going to come out the womb fighting. Not fighting his mama, but he's going to come out fighting he's going to fight the power coming out the womb. And there's no way I'm going to suppress that warrior spirit in him by injecting the white man's poison in his veins. You out your fucking mind. That's why I tell brothers right now, shit, you want to be with me, you better be ready to move somewhere on a farm. Because my warrior is going to fucking eat food that I grew. I don't trust the food. Didn't I just show you the shit? How could you sit there and watch all that I just showed you that they did to the people in Asia and question what their points, what could be in the immunizations? How could you question? Knowing everything that you know about the Tuskegee experiments and all these kind of things. How would you even question about what could possibly be in these immunizations that they're trying to force down your fucking throat? When has the United States government ever gave you anything for free that was worth any fucking thing? You know, I know for a fact that if you're not up to date on your immunizations, you could go down to the health department and you could get them shots for free. If your child has asthma, does the government give you free fucking asthma pumps? Huh? With no, like, Medicaid, no nothing. You don't gotta have Medicaid to go down to the health department and get your fucking immunization. You ain't got to have shit. If your child has asthma and it needs a fucking breathing treatment, are they gonna give your child a free breathing treatment? So your child can breathe and live. No, the fuck they're not. So why the fuck would you believe that they would give your child an immunization to keep them from getting a disease that ain't shit? The measles ain't shit anyway. Chickenpox ain't shit anyway. Did y'all have the chickenpox when y'all was a kid? I did. They want you to immunize your children on fucking diseases that don't even mean shit now. It killed a couple of people in the 1900s because they didn't have penicillin. Shit. Or fucking sewage. A goddamn toilet makes a big difference, you know, when you're not shitting and eating in the same fucking place. They fucking giving you immunizations on things like the measles. And if you got any questions, I broke down that shit. How the measles ain't they sitting talking about it's an outbreak. Outbreak where? And now they trying to make it we're adults. Adults. When did I see? You know what? Shit. Since we on here, I don't know if it's gonna let me do it. Healthy people. I think that's what it's called. 2020. Because now, you think it was going to stop with the kids? Oh, no. Oh, they want adults to be immunized by 2020. And if you work certain jobs, because I know they used to do that already, but they used to tell you that if you didn't want the flu shot, you just have to wear the fucking mask all the time. I would opt to wear the fucking mask. Fuck that shit. And I think it was in Westchester. Healthy People 2020. Let me see if I can find the video. 3 months ago.
Of health for the
I was supposed to be going to bed. You got me talking about immunizations. You ain't never had the chicken pox? You must be young. Philly. Lord have mercy. Okay. I'm going to play this. And I'm going to get some eye drops for my contact lenses because they're getting dry. Okay. Hold on. I've never seen this video, so hopefully
This lesson, we will focus on Healthy People 2020 goals. National goals are set every 10 years to help improve the health of all Americans. They are called Healthy People goals. The Healthy People goals are quite extensive. They have 42 topic areas with more than 12,000 objectives. We will also focus on the idea of health for the entire community. You will consider what things you notice in the community and what you are able to find during a data statistics search. You will then read through the leading health indicators and choose a goal that applies as we begin to explore the community in the scenarios provided. In this class and in this exercise, we will focus on the leading health indicators. They are also known as LHIs because they represent high priority health issues and actions that can be taken to address them. This slide highlights the first 7 leading health indicators. These will be the area of focus for your scenario. Once you have begun to assess your community,
some eye drops in my eyes. But let me see if I can find what I'm really looking for. Healthy people. This is me when I'm researching shit. Sitting here biting my nails. Don't my nails look great? I'm not saying that I don't take any kind of medication. What I'm saying is I try to limit the kind of medication that I do ingest. I don't just ingest things all willy-nilly. You know what I'm saying? Just because they're telling me to do it. Even when I have a cold, I don't take cold medicine. I try to take natural things. Vitamin C, zinc, things like that. You try to limit, like, it's not that I'm sitting here saying that I'm saying that when I have kids, I'm going to do my best to totally unplug. Like, I'm going to do my best. Because it seems like they're using everything to try to kill us. Now, if that's not something that you want to do and you want to take your chances, then that's up to you. Like, it was like somebody that was in the comments one time, and I ended up having to block him about the children and everything. Like, you don't have to agree with me when it comes to your children, but if something happens, don't ask me to do shit. I have the right to not to say I don't want to see. It's very difficult for me emotionally to be sitting here doing videos on children dying. To edit these videos, I'm watching this shit 1,000,000 times over. And then y'all are sending it to me 1,000,000 times over. And then it's on my timeline 1,000,000 times over. And that's hard. Especially for a person who doesn't have any children. And then I'm sitting there getting pushed back from y'all as parents on what I'm trying to tell you to do that could keep your children from being in an environment